movie sound until you go to Little Ground Top, but that's okay. Right. Now endorsed by a Pulitzer Prize winner. Do you like coffee?
I can't really drink coffee.
Why not? You don't like the taste of it?
No, caffeine.
Oh, I hear you. But you used to drink coffee.
I have drank coffee.
Too bad this wasn't around back in the day when you drank coffee.
Right.
Because you would have enjoyed this. This is our coffee. It's called Little Ground Top. It's roasted right here in Gettysburg at 82 Steinway Avenue, Bantam Roasters. You can go in anytime. You can get a bag whenever you want. Smell that, though, Anna. Isn't that wonderful?
It smells
really good. It does smell really nice,
yes,
doesn't it?
It does.
You could just keep a bag of this in your living room just for the smell, right?
Yeah.
But you got to get it ground first. You know, they could do it in whole bean or ground. You can get it ground if you want it for drip coffee or a French press, whatever. It's just fantastic. You could also buy it online if you, when you get back home to Pittsburgh and you decide, oh, my friend loves coffee. Oh, I just heard about this Little Ground Top. Well, you go to addressinggettysburg.com/cafe and you can order it there and get it, and you don't ever have to set foot in Gettysburg again. Not that you wouldn't want to, because and not that we don't want you to. We love having you here, so you come back as often as you want. But yeah, Little Ground Top. So 82 Steinway Avenue, Bantam Roasters here in Gettysburg, or addressinggettysburg.com/cafe.
Museum of History Studios. You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all the ships at sea. I have terrible news for you, folks. There is no live Ask a Guide tonight. Rich Snyder, thank you very much for that super thanks or super chat there, but I'll pay you. I'll pay you back next time I see you, because we're not going to be able to do a live Ask a Guide. The guide didn't show up. and
instead
we have Eric Houston, which is a close second, but still miles away. But no. So what I'm going to do is this. Yesterday I recorded 3 shows here with one with Scott Hartwig, one with Jim Broomall, and one with Zach Fry. CWI is still going on and all that jazz. And so I thought, well, I had 6 questions back there switching the camera, which makes it easier. There's less editing to do because the camera switches are recorded. So I just went in. I edited something together really quick, like literally in like 10 minutes or so. Like we were just sitting back there eating our wings. And we realized that Guide's not showing. Hasn't answered my email. I don't think he's aware. So, hopefully he's okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully Chris is okay.
Authorities have been called.
Right. Yes, we've called the authorities. He's expected here. Can you go do a welfare check? Now, I shouldn't even joke because if something I shouldn't joke because if something bad happened, then I'd feel horrible. So anyway, we will find out. We'll reschedule Chris. We'll have him on again to talk about the 14th Connecticut at PICKETT'S charge. But in the meantime, if you just hold tight, maybe a half hour or so, it depends on how long it'll take for that to render out and upload. I will upload my interview with Scott Hartwig yesterday. So when we had Scott and we had Jim and Zach come in, when each one came in, I said, so what are we talking about? And for example, Jim said, I don't know, it's your show. And I said, all right, well, then let's start talking about what they did to Sullivan Ballew's body after the Battle of Bull Run. And he's like, okay. And that meandered to all different places. And Scott and I just sat down and started talking, kind of like we did with Dale Dye. And that went on, and we touched on a whole bunch of things there. Because, Scott, not only is he a renowned historian, but he started with the National Park Service the year after I was born, 20 years ago. And so he's been through a lot of the different eras of the Park Service, right? And he remembers all different things that they used to tell everybody. But we talk about that. Like, well, why is it at one time the story is this and another time the story is that? And he gave really good answers to that.
What? And I don't I feel like I've heard it, but he didn't start at Gettysburg, did he? Did he start?
You know, I
somewhere
feel
else?
like
Did
I
you guys
heard that
touch on
too, and I don't recall. Maybe somebody in the
Goes to
audience
show how
knows
bad of
that.
a listener I am. I feel like I even asked him one time.
Oh, it goes to show how bad I am. I was sitting right across from him when he told me. I feel like Gettysburg was his first one.
Was it?
I feel like that, but I also, but he said, no, I don't know. Actually, that's a good point because he didn't say, I don't think he said he started at Gettysburg at 79. He started with the Park Service at 79.
Yeah.
And so,
But he spent the vast majority of his time here.
as far as I know, yeah. I mean, when I think of, from my growing up, when I think of Gettysburg, I see Scott Hartwig.
I see him on Civil War combat.
Yeah.
Tuesday mornings before school.
He's on exactly. He's on Civil War combat and all that jazz.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm really sorry. I'm disappointed too because I like doing these, and I know a lot of people have liked them. But we've got plenty of content that we did at CWI. So I figured I'll give you one of the ones that's easy because we did it here in the studio and it's easy to slap together and put out. So it'll be out in a little bit tonight. Let me just see your comments here. See what you got. Rich, again, thank you very much for the super chat, and I will slip you a 20 next time I see you.
Thank you, Rich. It's good to know I'm worth $20 to you, even though you didn't know I was here.
I know. I got 3 dozen wings for tonight too, which is fine because now there's more for us to eat. But you know,
Yeah, dozen here, already gone.
I think we both had about a dozen. I could eat another half dozen.
And hey, 6Q, long time no see.
Yeah, so Peter says, good evening. Michael 6 question says she was a real sport for this. Yeah, she was great. Etta Fields Black.
Etta Fields,
she was fantastic.
Yeah, she was.
We
That
did
was a really good interview.
So let's talk a little bit about CWI since we're here and it's wrapping up tonight. Oh, maybe we could go to the beer social.
Oh, we could.
What time is that?
I'd have to look them
All
up.
right, well, don't worry about it.
I think it started at 6:30 and it may go to 8:30.
Oh, most people leave by like 7:45, but the beer doesn't.
The beverages should still be there till 8:30.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, anyway, CWI was a lot of fun this year. Okay, let me. Here's what we'll do, folks. We'll put it to a vote. Would you like to see tonight, instead of our regularly scheduled programming, would you like to see the panel that I was on? Or would you like to see the interview I did with Scott Hartwig yesterday? The panel is already scheduled to come out Friday. Couple clicks of a button, I can have it up in minutes after we end this live stream. Scott Hartwig might take a half an hour or an hour, depending on how long everything takes to do.
Yeah.
So, but I've done my part. The editing's done. Now the computer has to do its part once we're done with this live stream. So it's up to you guys. You make the call, and that's what we will do. Good evening, Valerie. How are you? Ron says, put 6 questions on and just turn them loose. I'd like to do that one day, and we could do that. We don't need to wait for him to get his license. We could do that. We could just have fun.
Pete Zach says interview. Gene says Hartwig.
Okay.
Hi,
so
Gene, by the way. How are you
So
doing?
we got 3 for Scott there. So there we go. Michael, our guest did not show tonight, so we didn't. We don't have a history show to do for you because our guest does the history show. But that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to do Scott Hartwig. It'll be maybe a half hour, something like that after the conclusion of this live stream. All right. So anyway, we did an interview with Doug Dowds on Friday. It might be him now. Could it be?
I'll be back.
Go check. We might actually have. See, we should have recorded now, Court. Right? Record, Court.
What if it's not the guy?
It'll be him. Just hit record. Did you hit record?
Yep.
Okay. So we'll see. We'll see, folks. It might actually be our guest, and we can make him sit right down and get down to it, and then we don't have to worry about putting up alternate programming for the night. By the way, thank you for the resounding votes to see my panel. All right, let's see. Who is it? Who is?
Just killing some time.
It is Chris.
It is Chris.
Oh.
Cast of characters.
Oh, and a cast of characters. Okay, very good. Very good. Corey, you might want to turn the monitors on in there. Okay. Well,
goodbye, everybody.
Hello,
Take
cast
care.
of characters. How are you? Thanks, Chris or Eric. Yeah, thanks for filling in.
Have you,
hate to put you right in the hot seat.
yeah, have you been playing the,
Have a seat. No, right there.
music?
Right there, Chris. Right there.
Here, you need a
Yeah.
stool in there too. We need two stools in there.
What do you need?
One for Frank.
Oh, okay.
Our special gift.
Oh, all right. Very good. Hey, Cor, why don't you go to full break minus little ground top, or break minus little ground top? We'll be right back, everybody. We'll be right back with the show.
At Digital History Pioneers Foundation, we are about grassroots history on digital platforms. That means we are about podcasters, documentarians, YouTubers, and even TikTokers. All of these creators are out there trying to share their love of history with the public. They don't need ideas, they need funding, both from viewers and corporate donors. DH Pioneers' initial funding focus is on the Civil War era, with a special emphasis on the Addressing Gettysburg podcast. So be a vital part of the unique content Addressing Gettysburg has in store by donating at dhpioneers.com and help bring your love of history to the people. Digital History Pioneers is an IRS Section 501c3 approved charitable corporation that makes any donation tax deductible to the fullest extent of the law.
The Gettysburg Museum of History, located right here in the center of Gettysburg, PA. Owner and curator Eric Dorr grew up here and has spent his life collecting and preserving history through artifacts ranging from the Civil War, the Battle of Gettysburg, World War II, presidential items, pop culture, and more. His museum is free and open to visitors Wednesday through Sunday, 11 to 5 p.m., where you can stop by and immerse yourself in some of the most amazing artifacts that you would never believe exist in the middle of Gettysburg. If you're a fan of Band of Brothers and Everything Easy Company, you'll love his exhibit featuring the Dick Winters collection and artifacts from D-Day. You can even own your own piece of history by buying one of the many relics they have for sale in the museum and on the website gettysburgmuseumofhistory.com. The Gettysburg Museum of History is a non-profit 501c3 organization with a foundation that allows all purchases and donations to keep the museum operating and open free of charge. They have been featured on the History Channel, the Travel Channel, the Smithsonian Channel, and the Science Channel. Now you can check them out on American Artifact, the series on the YouTube channel, The History Underground. So that's the Gettysburg Museum of History at 219 Baltimore Street or the gettysburgmuseumofhistory.com.
If you like this podcast and what we're doing here, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much.
Pickett's charge take?
That's another great question.
Who can forget the sounds of the 60s?
The 1860s. I can't, and you can't either. Now, there's Marching Through Georgia, the exciting new album by Billy Webster. All of your favorite hits of the 1860s in one place. Such hits as Gary Owens, the Battle Hymn of the Republic, All Quiet Along the Potomac Tonight, Marching Through Georgia, and much, much more. So what are you waiting for? Go to billysongs.com and order your digital download of Billy Webster's Marching Through Georgia today. That's billysongs.com.
Seminary Ridge Museum and Education Center
Gettysburg's premier museum is housed in the historic Lutheran Seminary building constructed in 1832, a witness to the first day of battle. The museum's 3 floors of exhibits connect visitors to the dilemmas that led to the Civil War, provide a powerful and personal view of the battle's first day, and explore one of the battlefield's largest hospitals. No visit to Seminary Ridge Museum and Education Center is complete without a guided tour of the building's famous cupola, where on the eve of battle, officers and civilians saw thousands of Confederate soldiers' campfires burning to the west, and Brigadier General John Buford watched for vital federal reinforcements as fighting erupted on the morning of July 1st. Today, you can stand where Buford stood and discover how this view helped chart the course of the Battle of Gettysburg. Your trip to Gettysburg is not complete without a serious visit to Seminary Ridge Museum and Education Center, Gettysburg's premier museum. Purchase tickets online at seminaryridgemuseum.org or call 717-339-1300. To get tickets or a cupola tour, listeners may call or walk in and mention addressing Gettysburg, or by ordering online using the promo code AG1863 for 20% off. Seminary Ridge Museum and Education Center. It began here.
There's a devil to pay.
You're listening to
Super chats of $10 or more rise above the din in the comments section. Now that that's out of the way, let's ask a Gettysburg guide. Here's Matt and the gang.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. All right, we are back. Wow, what a mess of a show it's been today. See, I don't think it's not your fault. We tell everybody to get here at 6 because we go live at 7, and that's not what the calendar invite said.
Yeah,
it said 7.
Aren't they drunk by then?
That's the idea.
Okay.
Yeah. Just get everybody drunk. Okay, so we are talking about the 14th Connecticut and their repulse of Pickett's charge, or their part in the repulse of Pickett's charge. Single-handedly, they knocked them all back after knocking a few back.
That's right.
And as well, you've been watching, so you know that it was Fuster Cluck. We were going to do some alternate programming, and we just went on to tell everybody the guide hasn't shown up, and I didn't know you had a tour. It's a mess, Chris. It's a mess. This is what happens.
So let's put it in a commercial. Yeah, I was doing the cemetery tour, which the guides do every evening at 5:30 during the summer, from Memorial Day to
which is definitely worth checking out.
Absolutely. It's a free tour, and then of course Taps is played 7 p.m. every evening.
Right.
During the summer not by the guide.
Thank God.
That's right. You wouldn't want to listen to me play taps.
No.
But over at the Pennsylvania Monument, sponsored by the Lincoln Fellowship. So.
And you brought along a friend of yours, Frank Niederwerfer, who is a reenactor with the 14th Connecticut. Hello, Frank. Welcome to Addressing Gettysburg. Have you ever been on such an internationally known show before?
No, not at all.
Well, don't be nervous. There's only 20 million people watching.
All right.
In my mind. Okay, so. Let's get talking about the 14th.
You're up to a heck of a lot of subscribers from what I saw on
YouTube,
right? It's like 25,000, something like that.
Something around there, yeah.
Hey, it probably jumped tonight, right?
Oh, yeah. It's going to shoot way up.
It'll peg out tonight.
Yeah, so real quick, the number is 717-420-1978. It's open. I'm feeling kind of laid back. It's summer, even though it's cold and rainy outside, so we'll take calls as they come in. How does that sound? Is that all right with you? Is that going to throw you off? No, I think so, right?
No, we're just here to chat.
Yeah, we're here to chat. So we're going to talk about the 14th Connecticut. You've already seen the commercials, so there's no call after the commercials or whatever. This is a fly-by-the-seat-of-your-pants version of the show. We are reacting to circumstances tonight, ladies and gentlemen. So, and then super chats, we will read your comment with a super chat of $10 or more. Thank you very much and kindly.
A super chat?
It's like you donate money and it puts your comment in a different color, so it stands out, and then because you paid, By the way, there's a dozen wings in there for you. I bought you dinner and everything. So, yeah, and then it's to help defray the cost of buying dinner every other week for everybody here.
Yeah, well, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. What's that?
We have a chat that we need to comment on, even though they didn't pay the $10. It's very important.
Okay, well, they tell me what it is.
A certain...
The one that says, "Hi, Dad"?
Says, "Hi, Dad."
Right, who's that?
Ask the folks in there.
Who's Kelly Ettinger?
Oh, it's my daughter.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Hi, Kelly.
All right. So that one I'll let slide.
What's her question?
There is a question.
I want to know her question.
What's
too.
her donation? That's what I want to know.
Last time she was here, she couldn't find the railroad cut.
Really? Well, guess you got to know where to look.
That's right. By the railroad.
Right over there. Okay. So let's get this under control. Now, the 14th Connecticut. When were they mustered in?
They're mustered in August of 1862, August 25th.
I knew that because I went to their monument today, and that's what it told me. Okay, so August 62. When did they join the Army of the Potomac?
It was September 7th or 8th?
September 7th, 1862.
Yeah, I mean, they're responding to the governor's call, of course, of the Connecticut troops.
Right.
So, yeah.
And then so their first battle's Antietam?
Yeah. Before that, though, the one thing that strikes me, Lincoln, when they went to Washington, Lincoln called them the best troops he had ever seen.
Oh, yeah?
And they were the first unit to walk through the parade and review when Lincoln, and that second call-up. And another governor, I think it was the mayor of Baltimore, said they were such an outstanding unit. And the reason they are outstanding, he said, there wasn't a drunken man among them. So there must have been a low bar to jump over. For
right. I'm just going to adjust your thing.
That's okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, while you're doing that, Matt, I've got a couple of other neat factoids, as our friend Jerry Hahn likes to say. The first non-fatal casualty was not during action, but it was an accident when a Frederick Schalk. He lost his footing. He falls 30 feet in Easton, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is a dangerous place.
Yeah, I was on the railroad trip there.
Yeah.
You wonder what he was doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe he didn't subscribe to that no drinking policy sort of thing.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. So, they will move out. They're going to go through Rockville, Maryland, to a camp. The first casualty is a guy named James McVeigh. He dies of exhaustion on the march as the regiment's approaching the camp. So there you go. That's going to be on Jeopardy next week, I think.
So how many are there?
Hey, you want to know something about James McVeigh? His two sons were with him.
Oh, really?
And they both survived the war without getting ever wounded or anything.
Not even wounded?
Nope.
Wow.
What was that prior to the Battle of Gettysburg or Antietam?
Prior to Antietam.
Yeah.
Prior to Antietam.
Yeah, it's kind of as they're coming out of camp.
So how many, when they're first mustered into service, how many men are there?
There's 1,015.
1,015. So full strength regiment.
Yep.
You see why I brought him along?
That's good. Right. Yeah. You don't have to look it up. He's
this
got
guy.
it right on the top of his head. All right. So what else? Tell us. Get us to Gettysburg then, I guess.
Well, let's chat about Antietam.
Okay.
Okay, because it's a different battle.
Yeah.
Leading up to.
And they were in it.
Yeah, they were in it. It was on September 17th, as you know.
Yes, I do.
The Battle of Antietam.
That's about all I know.
They're going to travel along the flank. They're going to enter into the East Woods. They'll pass through Mama's Orchard, cornfield, towards the Confederate line. They're going to perform well. Their casualties come from Confederate fire and an accident, including there's a case of an exploding shell in Company D that kills 3 of them, wounds 4 of them. In total, 21 guys are killed in their first battle, 88 wounded, 28 missing. Probably the most famous casualty is a captain named Captain Blinn. Okay, and that will get filled by a man named Samuel Moore, who he goes on to do more with the regiment.
Yeah, he becomes a colonel eventually.
Yeah.
So
that's Antietam.
Okay.
Well, they had a son,
Yes.
And I had 4 relatives in this regiment.
Okay. Is that where your interest started?
That's where my interest started.
That makes sense.
So I had 4 of them. They're all in the same company, in Company D of the 14th. And they all came from the Rockville, Connecticut area. One was from South Windsor, one from Town, and 2 from Vernon.
Okay. All right. Where else? What after Antietam? So what do they do after that?
So they had at Antietam, they suffered heavy casualties because they were attacking the sunken road, and then they were put in actually behind the Irish Brigade to support them. And when the breakthrough finally made in the sunken road, they were right in that area. But after Antietam, some of them helped bury the dead right there at the sunken road and stuff. And they moved on to Harper's Ferry. The a lot of people don't know is they didn't have their knapsacks with them. They had left these back in Washington to get transported up.
Oh, never trust that.
And some only had with them a blanket or their gum blanket. So when they got to Harper's Ferry for the next month, 2 months, in bad weather, they were sitting there with just a blanket or a gum blanket. And a lot of them got sick. They had a lot of sickness in the unit during that time.
Sure. Yeah.
Up till about November.
Yeah, you're headed into that cold weather and you're wet and
It had been terrible, for these guys.
Did they eventually get their knapsacks?
They would get actually uniform. They got new uniforms.
Okay.
Because now there's a little contention with this. The 14th went with Connecticut had supplied them with an all blue pant, a blue frock coat. There's guys that write about it in the regiment. This is where I was always under the impression that they had their frock coat. And there's a guy that writes, no, they left their frock coats in Washington. Okay. Goddard was his name. And they used their sack coats. Now, you've seen other guys talk about it the other way around, so who knows? I mean,
I like to give multiple choice.
Yeah, this is one of them.
So which one do you think it is?
Yeah, which one do you like?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with they had their frock coat.
Yeah.
Because then they were given the sky blue pants.
Okay.
And they were given the sack coats. They got this extra stuff. They were finally given uniforms. Because they were actually, when they got on the way to Antietam, they were bullied by the Irish Brigade.
Oh, they were?
They were bullied. They were actually made fun of. They were made fun of because they were in all blue.
Okay.
And the regular Army guys didn't have all blue. They had the sky blue pants.
That's right, okay.
So the Irish Brigade started making fun of them, and they complained about it and stuff. And what would happen later with the 14th is they became the bullies to other people.
Of course. I guess that's how it works, though. When you're the new guy, you get bullied, and then once you're there, you start bullying others.
We didn't cover that when we did the Irish Brigade. I'll have to talk to John.
No, I know. Yeah.
You better find out because they were mean to my guys.
Yeah. We didn't cover the topic of bullying at all in the Irish Brigade one. No.
But that's written by guys in the regiment, right, about that.
Yeah.
So but there they are behind them at Antietam, though, huh? Kind of
they back up the Irish Brigade at Antietam,
yeah.
Well, it's just some friendly joshing.
Yeah.
Guys being guys. We like to bust balls every once in a while.
Like buddies for life.
Right? Yeah. What's that from? What is that? Rick Moranis?
Caddyshack.
It's Caddyshack. That's right. Yeah.
The unit they end up picking on is the 108th New York, which was with them in the same brigade.
Why did they pick on them?
Well, they came with, they got added to the brigade, and they're all nice new uniforms, clean. They were wearing white gloves. They were given white gloves, so they started making fun of them. And their colonel then went crazy and went to the head, Ellis and stuff for the 14th and started making, you guys are being, mean and bullies.
Oh,
yeah, I know.
Poor you. Oh, that's a shame.
So you thought it was just stand up and throw bullets out there,
right? Yeah,
this is different. This is behind
There's
the scenes
a whole other world.
They can handle that, but they can't handle some hiding. Come on now.
Yeah,
so did they? The white gloves, was that the colonel that made them wear that?
They were given these. I don't know the 108th story of why they came. This is when they first joined the brigade and stuff. And
sounds like that's what it is.
But they would fit in.
Yeah. Well, because he went and cried.
Yeah, basically.
So it sounds like he's.
That's my story.
Yeah. Right. All right. So what else?
Well, then they go into Fredericksburg, and I know Fredericksburg is something that we really want to focus on because that does involve one of Frank's relatives.
Okay,
and,
so Fredericksburg,
kind of a famous story actually.
They were part of the Second Corps attack on Mayor's Height.
I was just going to ask you, were they in the Second Corps?
Yeah,
so,
Second
okay,
Corps attack on Mayor's Height, and I had, like I said, I had 4 relatives in that company, and on that battle, when they came across the railroad, the canal there, and got out in the field, they went to the left and formed up, and they were down at a fence, and as they're getting up, a shell burst right in Company D, and it hit my closest relative, my great-great-uncle, in the mouth. And took most of his mouth.
That was not
that's not nice.
No, that wasn't.
That's not nice.
I swear to God, that I hit my finger. My finger hit it, and it was still on the button.
There might be some bullying coming up.
This is it. Just for that. Hey, just for that.
Yeah.
If you want to show it, there's a picture of the
now
wound.
I feel really bad. I really didn't do that on purpose.
That's what the wound looked like.
Jesus.
Oh my God, he made fun of him.
No, I didn't. I swear, Frank. I didn't make fun of him.
But, this actually, I think, a lot of your listeners may recognize this photo.
God.
It's a pretty famous photograph.
Yeah. This is a pretty famous photograph. So this is your relative.
That's my great-great-uncle.
Oh,
my mother's
God,
side.
look at that tooth.
He has 2 teeth left. That's all he had in his mouth.
And he kept them.
He lived 17 years after that.
Really?
Yep. And got remarried.
You're kidding. Wow.
Yeah, wow.
Wow.
You know what? He had kids after that,
Do you have
too.
the,
There's a lid for every pot, right, Court?
Absolutely.
Something didn't get shot off.
Do you have the sketch that,
Yeah.
And
then a friend of mine.
He lost his mouth, but what do you need that for when it comes to baby making, right? Yeah.
Dan Hayden, a friend of mine, took his picture there, his brother's picture, and another picture we have of him 3 years later with a beard on.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a friend of his, a sketch artist, do what he would have looked like. Because we don't have a picture of what he would have.
So this was a friend of yours that did this? Or
a friend of mine had an artist friend of his do that. Dan Hayden.
Well, there you go. Handsome guy.
Yeah.
It's a shame. Well, I guess his wife could see beyond the mangled mouth.
Something
right?
Good.
God bless wives.
I know.
Yeah. Amen. What?
Oh, there's a story, all right.
All right, go ahead. Tell us the story of his wife.
Just remember, this is a PG show.
Yeah, is it? Okay. Well, first, right, okay. He gets when he gets back home in '63. He stays in a hospital down there in the Stanton Hospital just outside of Washington for like 3 months. His brother goes to get him. Okay, finds him in horrid conditions. Okay, he's brought back to Vernon. They never did an operation on him while he was there. Never helped, just cleaned it.
So he's just sitting there with this festering mouth
They
wound.
basically listed him every week as mortally wounded.
Okay, so they were waiting for him to die.
They were waiting for him to die. Came home and they did 2 operations on him. In his brother's house and then in one in his father's house.
Oh, my God.
That picture you see there is between the 2 operations.
Oh.
Yeah.
And this was shrapnel, you said.
It was a piece of a shell. It hit him. Next to him, right, just to go back a second, just his brother-in-law was next to him, was blinded by the same shell burst.
Really?
Now, this was his second wife, his brother-in-law.
Okay.
On the other side, it was this man, Charles Lyman, who turned and looked, and there was a fence post between him, and the piece of shell was in the fence post.
Oh, God.
Right by his head.
Oh, my God.
Okay. And that man, Charles Lyman, would take a bullet through his crotch of his pants.
Oh.
A bullet takes his haversack off. He raises his gun to shoot, and the bullet hits the stock of his gun, and he finds a bullet in his bedroll. And this all happened in like 10 minutes.
Jesus.
And
he gets shot in both sacks.
Yeah.
And
so you got all this going on with this one man. Okay, but now we'll go back to his wife, because he wants to hear the story about his wife. Okay. His wife, he comes home, and his wife deserts him. Okay.
Because of the mouth.
That's what I always
We're
thought.
assuming.
For years,
right.
I thought this was what happened. Now,
she was a Jersey girl.
This was his second wife. His first wife had passed away after 8 months. I think it was childbirth related after 8 months of marriage.
Okay.
So he married in 62, early 62, or 60, late 61. And he was married to this Maria Simons. And when he got home in 63, she deserts him. It took him 3 years to get a divorce in Connecticut at the time by desertion. He gets the desertion in 66.
Okay.
Well, we find out he ends up in 69 marrying this other lady, a neighbor, and close to him, just on the road over from where we actually lived. I actually live today. And we find he has 2 kids by her. Now, we don't know, we know the date of the girl, Dora. It was 72 or 71. But we never knew Leonard's date, the boy. And it was 70. We always thought he was younger, 72. Okay. Well, we thought he was younger. We find out, he was born in 62 of the third wife while he was married to the second wife.
Oh, wow.
So there's a story.
Wow, there's a scandal there.
We're going deeper down into the family lore here.
This is the rabbit hole.
Yeah, now you're talking. All right.
No wonder your daughter wanted to tune in.
I know.
My history.
So and my grandmother had written out all the birthdays of all the people in the family, and she'd passed away in 1980. But I have this on a record of this list she made, And for Leonard's birthday, there is none on her list. It's the only one in the whole family.
Wow.
She leaves blank.
So how were you able to find the birthday?
By a lady, I was given a talk about Oliver, and a lady jumps up when I mentioned the two kids' names, and her aunt was Dora, the daughter. Her aunt was Dora. She passed away in 1948. I knew when she passed, but I didn't know where she's buried. I didn't know she had relatives left. So this lady that was her aunt. And she goes, I have the original, she shows me the original pictures of Oliver's wound there. The original ones.
Right.
That were taken and given to, Dora had a little picture book. And she gives it to me that day.
Really?
She gave me a picture.
So that's where you got that picture?
It exists.
Or there's others?
No. There's one in the National Archives.
Right.
But I have that one now as one of the.
So the one that you showed us is that the one from the National Archives?
Yeah, it's blown up. Yeah. It's the same one that's in there. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the one we've all seen. Yeah. But you have other pictures of him.
And now I know when it was taken and everything. So I know a lot more about him just because this lady gave me this and showed me where the graves of the daughter and the brother were.
Wow.
And then I could fit Leonard's date is in 1862, and we all thought he was born in 1872.
So then he goes on to marry that lady before the daughter's born. Is that? Do I have
No,
that
right? The Dora married into the Skinner family, which were related. Everybody in this town, I think, was related to each other.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
You got to understand this.
It's a small town.
I think everybody was related to each other in this town at the time. Okay, so she's related to because the Barbers were already related into the family, and actually Oliver's father had married a barber, and now he married.
Somebody whose last name is Barber.
Yeah.
I thought you meant somebody cuts hair. And it was like,
no, it was the same family. Weird. Same family.
Yeah.
So
you don't have a lot of choices, I guess, in a small town. So the son is 10 years old, illegitimate, until the father finally marries the mother after the first wife dies, the second one abandons him, and then he's like, well, I might as well make an honest woman out of you.
Yep.
And then we have a legitimate child.
Yep.
Wow.
And then he lives.
What a story.
10 years in that marriage. He lives only 10 more years.
Right.
And he died because of the wound. They call it a consumption, but it was because of everything. Just he couldn't eat right. A lot of things and stuff. And so, but he said that was the happiest. He actually said this. This is the happiest 10 years of my life.
Really?
Yeah.
With the woman and the kids. Well, I mean, why not, right?
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking there's a famous bluegrass song, I'm my own grandpa. As Frank's describing this, to mind.
It doesn't just happen in the South, I guess is what you're saying.
It's quite a story.
Yeah, it's a great story.
And his cousin who's carrying the regimental flag gets mortally wounded in that battle of Fredericksburg.
Fredericksburg.
Yeah, Fredericksburg, yeah.
So, wow, okay.
So these guys have really just gotten started in 62. They go through Antietam and Fredericksburg.
Well, I'm always fascinated when I see a regiment is mustered in August of 62, and I go, oh boy. You guys, your first battle is going to be...
Right into it.
Your first major battle is going to be Antietam. Okay, so Fredericksburg, what else? Anything else at Fredericksburg, or is that the story of Fredericksburg for them?
Well, a lot happens for the regiment. I mean, the battle was short. Their time in that battle was short. They attacked. They got repulsed. A lot of them stayed
Which
out.
brigade were they in?
They were in the second brigade.
Who's that?
Third
Who's
Division,
that?
Second Brigade. That would be who was that at the time? Oh my God!
I don't remember who had
Morris.
No. Somebody look that up. Second Corps, Third Division, Second Brigade.
Probably one of these guys listening would know it.
Yeah,
these guys listening, my friends, would probably know it. They'll call in now.
We'll have to pull out the Frank O'Reilly work on Fredericksburg to refer to that.
Find that. Okay, but so go ahead.
Okay, and so they after that they stayed in town for a day and a half. They actually, a lot of them, they got the wounded off the field, and he was actually taken off. Here's I want to know. You want to know the little story about this? Yeah. Ben Hurst, the sergeant there with Company D, and he's a well-known person in Rockville. He actually got a couple of his men and got my uncle, great uncle, and his brother-in-law off the battlefield. They would have died.
Yeah.
They would have died on that battle because the temperature dropped that night and they would have just died out there. And he got them back to town into a house. And because of what he did, there were whispers about him being a coward because a sergeant wasn't supposed to leave the line of battle, was not supposed to leave that battle line.
Okay.
So he took him back and then he stayed with Oliver. And there's a reason why he did, because at Antietam, he had a good friend of his had been wounded as they were moving toward the sunken road. And that friend, he knew he was wounded, but leaned him, tried to help him a little bit, but stayed with the battle line. And by the time he got back to his friend, he was dead. And I think he didn't want to see another friend.
First didn't want to go through that again.
Yeah. Didn't want to go through it again.
Right.
And he got whispers, but this guy was a good soldier. He ended up being a good soldier and moving on through Gettysburg. He got wounded at Gettysburg. Yeah. Stayed with the regiment till late '63. He had 2 brothers in that regiment too, the Hearst brothers. There were 3 of them in that regiment, with these all in the same company. All these guys are all
well, of course they all know each other. They're all related, and Eric has an answer for us on the brigade.
Okay.
Colonel Oliver H. Palmer.
Palmer, yeah.
That's right. It was Palmer.
Yep, he was there. Yep.
Thank you, Eric. Palmer's brigade. Whose division was that?
It's French. It should be French.
French.
Should be French.
Thank
division,
you. Yeah. All right, we got the answer on that one. Thank you, Eric. It's nice having you back there, Eric. You can Google things. Maybe you should move down here and be our Googler.
I'm just old. I forget things once in a while.
That's it. It's amazing what a little research does. Yeah.
So we have a couple of super chats here. Michael Red from Australia, so it's our friend Grant. He says, I heard that the 14th wouldn't take people from New Jersey. Is that true? And why would they do that? I'm from New Jersey. He just. I have to read it because he paid.
Because they're loud.
Because they're loud.
They were right next to him on the battle line.
I was going to say, a lot of their recruits as the war went on from New York. But most of those guys deserted.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, Michael, 6 questions. Len says, I noticed the white trefoil. The 14th Connecticut was in the 3rd Division, 2nd Corps at Gettysburg. Then why the white trefoil on the shirt?
That's because they went to the 2nd Division, 3rd Brigade after the winter of '64.
Okay.
But here's the next time we get one of these from Mr. Lentz.
Yeah, who already knows the answer.
Who is on his way to becoming a guy.
Right.
Answer your own question. There are 6 questions.
Yeah, 6 questions. Just start telling us what you know.
That's right.
But still donate.
That came
Oh, yeah, you definitely got to donate.
It came in Grant's reorganization after that winter.
Yeah. So 64 they reorganized.
They went from a brigade of like 4 regiments to like 9 regiments in their brigade, and then when they got reorganized after that.
9 regiments in the brigade?
Like 9 regiments.
But they were like 150 guys each?
Yeah, they were small. They were small.
Yeah. Okay, so how about then in the winter when Hooker takes over and the reorganization? Anything?
They were very depressed. That's that's who you'll read. It was a very depressing time for them.
Yeah.
They had a lot of sickness. Numbers went down because of sickness and stuff.
Yeah. Just pull that mic a little closer to your mouth.
Okay. They went from I was saying from what they have in Fredericksburg, maybe 350, 400 guys. Where in Chancellorsville they had like 200, 220.
Okay.
By the time they get to Gettysburg, it's 172.
That's all disease wiping them out.
A lot of it, yeah. A lot of it's in the, they had the casualties of Fredericksburg, but they didn't have many casualties at Chancellorsville.
I think somewhere in that period of time, didn't the 20th Maine have like a smallpox epidemic run through?
They were quarantined during Chancellorsville.
Yeah.
I think they were. Yeah.
So did that hit them too? Or, I mean, it couldn't have just been the 20th Maine, was it?
I never read anything about them getting sickness as a regiment. There's guys got sick,
right.
And stuff, and left the Army. Plus, just like everything, with the Union Army had about 10% desertions. They had their share of desertions.
Mm-hmm.
Guys got tired of this, and enough of this.
What was the regiment mostly made up of, profession-wise?
Oh, it was a lot of things. Mill workers, farmers. A lot of the guys, especially that company from Rockville, Company D, a lot of them are mill workers. And then they had the farmer contingent,
So were they from a mostly rural area of Connecticut?
They're from all over Connecticut.
Okay.
That regiment, they always said, was representative of a lot of Connecticut. Like Company D was Rockville area, but this area, I don't know if you know Connecticut that well.
Not very well. I've been there twice.
Company B was from the Middletown, which was the town in the middle of Connecticut. That's why it's named Middletown. Okay.
It's the thing I like about people in Connecticut. They don't keep you guessing,
No.
They tell you what it is.
Company G was the Madison area, Hampton area, Haddam area.
Haddam,
so
down by the coast.
They came from areas. They came from all over the state.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Okay. So Chancellorsville, they fought at Chancellorsville, though?
Yeah, at Chancellorsville, they went into the battle. Do you want to add anything here?
He's enjoying hearing you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm learning a bunch.
Okay. They went into the battle at Chancellorsville. They were caught, they came in the first day's fighting had happened, and they were put in there as Stonewall Jackson was breaking the 11th Corps to pieces. Their corps came in to try to support that. And they had a neat little thing happen there where they were, I don't know if you've ever been to the Chancellorsville battlefield.
Yeah.
Probably have. Okay. You know what a visitor center is?
Vaguely.
Well,
It's been a long time.
Yeah. You go between the visitor center and the Chancellor House, there's a wooded area.
Oh, yeah.
They were in that wooded area. And as here comes Stonewall, the whole, Stonewall Jackson's flank attack and troops running past them, their band steps out. And in between, and their band was a well-known band in the Second Corps.
Okay.
For some reason, Grant called them the best band that he heard in the Second.
Really?
Yeah, when he got there in '64. He liked them.
It's because one of Eddie Van Halen's ancestors was in it.
The eruption solo on a trumpet.
So they step out there and they start playing. They start playing all kinds of songs to try to buff up their own guys retreating. And not one of them got hurt.
Really?
Yeah, all shells landing all over the place. Nobody in the band gets hurt. There was only a few casualties in that battle for them.
So the march to Gettysburg, anything noteworthy there during the march? Because they arrive here, the evening of the 1st? No, or the morning of the 2nd?
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, they're coming up. It's probably closer to the morning of the 2nd.
Like the wee hours.
Like the 1st, but they're not quite on the field yet.
Okay.
Right.
The night of the 1st they spent on picket duty on Baltimore Pike.
Yeah.
That's right. It said that on the monument.
That's where they spent at picket duty.
Yes, it did.
So that whole area between Tawnytown Road and the Baltimore Pike,
right,
covering that approach.
Okay.
Before they camp somewhere in that area too, right?
Yeah.
So they're facing west then, like they're picketing west towards between the Tawnytown Road and the Baltimore Pike. You're saying? Tawnytown Road is west.
The picket line went out to the Baltimore Pike.
Yeah, the picket line would be going east.
Yeah.
It would be going east, so they're covering the right.
They must have been camped at the Old Navy store at the outlet mall.
Yeah.
That's what I can think of.
Old Navy.
That's about 3 miles away.
Yeah.
I mean, coming in that area.
Where that brewery is they got out there.
Yeah. All right, so then they get here. They get in line.
Yeah.
Right. What do they do?
They come in down the Tawnytown Road, and they go off to the right, and then they're pulled over right into that open area, right where the cyclorama would have been.
Okay, yeah.
They would have been right there. And they waited there for hours. And that's where one great incident. You notice about James Coit, Chris?
Yeah, I've got that story somewhere.
Yeah, that's James Coit's a captain, and he's sitting there with his men and stuff, and a horse up on the ridge.
Yes.
Just given to it. You've read this one?
I read it in the official records.
Given to a drummer boy, and it runs right for the 14th Connecticut guy.
Mm-hmm.
And they all part the ways, and here's Coit. And Coit was a good guy. Pulls his sword out to try to slash at the horse, I guess.
Oh, Jesus.
And he gets run full face. This horse hits him, full body.
Yeah.
And he survives. He misses the battle, but he survives. He survives.
Yeah, in the report, this is the report of Major Theodore Ellis, 14th Connecticut.
Commander, yeah.
He says, during the day, the regiment was at times under heavy shell fire, but met with no loss, excepting in the case of Captain Coit, who was seriously injured accidentally by a runaway horse.
Yeah. And it was because they gave it to a drummer boy to hold.
Well, everybody knows who's ridden a horse. You ride horses. What's the number one rule? Never give your horse to a drummer boy.
That's right.
Right? Yeah, everybody knows that.
Yeah, it's
the drums scare him.
Yeah. So Theodore Ellis, you mentioned him, Matt. He's born in 1829 in Boston.
The major.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a civil engineer in Hartford before the war. He becomes a first lieutenant and then the adjutant of the 14th Connecticut. He does get advanced to major by July 1st, and he is in command of the regiment at Gettysburg. He'll eventually rise to colonel, breveted brigadier general, U.S. Volunteers in 1865, and he musters out in June of 65, becomes the Surveyor General in Connecticut, dies there in 1883. And it's a common name in Connecticut. You see it everywhere.
Oh, no, Ellis. Yeah.
You see it everywhere around Hartford.
Yeah. He tried to become colonel when Hooker first got in command, and they turned him down. And I don't know what the reasons for that was. They just said no.
Politics.
Not this time. You're a major. Yeah. Maybe because the regiment wasn't that big.
Just go do major stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We'll get to you.
Go do major stuff.
It's probably because they bullied everybody. So at Gettysburg, they came up behind the line then. They were pulled up right behind the stone wall, behind the Delaware troops.
Yeah. This is where they're facing west.
This is
okay, now they're facing west.
And one of the stories I love about that is their chaplain, Stevens. He sees, he's looking out, and he's looking at the skirmish line. And he talks about this, about how there's a wounded Union soldier got hit, and he's trying to crawl away, and the Confederates just kept shooting at him. And I wrote it down there. He wrote about, he goes, truly war makes game of men, and we do all act reckless in our treatment of human life. It really is, he just watched these guys just constantly trying to kill a poor wounded guy. And he couldn't believe it,
You read a lot of stories where they'll let the wounded guy go, right? They're not gonna go after him, but
these guys are trying to just kill him. It was like a game to them. Yeah. Can we hit the guy crawling? So
what I'm going to do here is we have people who submit, as you know, questions. We have people, and they submit questions ahead of time. So along with taking calls or the super chats, I'm going to pepper those questions in. Usually we wait till the end to do, but I'll just pepper them in as we go.
Yeah.
So I got two here. On the same topic, so I'm going to read them here. Amy Turcott says, I'm hoping Chris, and she didn't know about you, Frank, and Frank, can talk about the Chinese-born soldier Joseph Pierce. I find it fascinating that he was there and helped repulse Pickett's charge. Didn't previously know that any Asian Americans served in the U.S. military in the Civil War. And then Pete Vermillier says, Joseph Pierce, a Chinese-American soldier, fought with the 14th Connecticut. What gives? No, he didn't say what gives. He says, what can you tell me about this story? So go ahead.
Yeah, you want to give the official version?
Well, let me start.
Give the official version, and then you tell us the real truth.
So,
the real history.
And now you know the rest of the story.
Yeah, right.
Well, sports fans, here's what I got. This is actually research done by Ed Guy, one of our licensed battlefield guides.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Have you met Ed? Has he been?
Oh,
on
yeah.
the show?
He's not been on the show. I would love to have him on, though.
Yeah.
I met him.
Ed is fantastic. I mean, he comes up with stories by state.
Yeah, right.
And by country even.
Right. That's why I want to have him on. Somebody told me that. Yeah, I have to do that. Let's hook it up there, Chris.
Yeah, fascinating guy. I love Ed. So this is some writings from him. And it all started with a claim that had been made that there was only one man born in China that served in the Army of the Potomac, and his name was John Tomney, Tomney, or Tommy, of the 70th New York. And this guy is killed in Gettysburg when a shell takes off both of his legs on July 2nd. But then Ed says we've discovered at least two more. This guy named Antonio Dardel, which sounds very Chinese.
That's not very Chinese.
This is Joseph Pierce.
Well,
true that.
Antonio
Jardel.
27th Connecticut, but he's not present here at Gettysburg. And then the other is Joseph Pierce, and that's who Ed wrote about. So born in November 16th, 1842 in China. He will die in 1916 in Meriden, Connecticut, believed to be buried there, but that's a question mark.
Wow.
Do you know? Is he buried in Meriden?
Yeah, I think he is.
Yeah.
I think so.
So he comes to the U.S. as a young man. He enlists he's 21 years old. He's in Company F of the 14th in July of 1862. He enlists in New Britain, Connecticut. He's described at enlistment as 5'5", dark complexion, hair with black eyes, occupation farmer. So it does say here he's often absent from the regiment. He hurt his back falling over a fence at the Battle of Antietam, suffers from a fall ever afterwards. He, must have done something to his balance. listed as absent sick in the convalescent camp of Alexandria from December of 62 until March and April of 63. He assists as a cook. He works in the quartermaster department in the convalescent camp. Again listed absent in February of 64 until October 64 on recruiting service in New Haven. So the records for 63, May, June 63 to July of 63 list them as present. So he should have been with the regiment. He does well enough to be appointed corporal by November of 63. He serves with the regiment in 64 until the final surrender and mustered out in D.C. in May of 65. Following the war, he goes back to Connecticut. He marries Martha Morgan in 1876. They live in Meriden, Connecticut. They have 4 children. And he becomes an engraver and has that occupation, for 2 years before his death. Still has illnesses, rheumatism, diseases of the stomach and the heart for the last 12 years of his life. And additionally, suffers from a senile debility of that lasts about 20 years. He lists his birthplace as Japan in the 1913 examination. So that must be the medical record. I never saw that. So all the other records claim he was born in China. So dies January 3rd, 1916.
So all the records say China, but he said Japan.
That one record. So
maybe he was just messing with them.
Well, Ed seems to attribute it to senility. So.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I know I'm from one of those countries out there.
Yeah, right. I'm from over there.
Over there.
Now, what's the real story, Frank?
Well, that's not bad. You said some things that are... No, that's not bad because I've seen things written about him, and I know at Antietam, I looked at the official records in the archives in Connecticut, and he was assigned at Antietam and at Fredericksburg. One he was assigned, I can't remember which one, as a cook. The other was assigned as in the hospital. So he didn't fight in either. He wasn't on the front line in either of those battles.
Okay.
He was assigned, and that's where he stayed. In the missing part, he was recruiting, so he missed all that 1 year, basically. He was in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And one thing I don't know where I saw this, but I remember seeing this, and that's why it's hard to confirm it was something. But when he at Gettysburg, somebody wrote, I saw this quote, "Up came Joseph Pierce to help with the wounded." After Pickett's charge.
Yeah.
Now, excuse me, I wonder sometimes if there was not a little discrimination there.
Mm-hmm. He's being bullied by the bullies.
By the bully boys.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you, was he in those rear of the line positions because he wasn't white?
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
Did these guys not want him fighting next to them? But then they do make him corporal.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
But corporals can still be off the line.
They made him corporal and send him to New Haven, Connecticut.
For recruiting.
For recruiting purposes.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah,
because at that time, there's a lot of anti-Chinese sentiment.
Right, yeah. That's what I'm wondering, if within that regiment, if that's what would happen to him.
Right.
I mean, his pictures in the regimental history, his picture's in there, but there's not one word written about him in there.
So it's just a
picture of a guy.
Yeah.
Picture.
A reference that
There's nothing written about him.
So is he on any? Well, I mean, names aren't on their monument, but I mean, is he memorialized anywhere?
Not that I've
even accidentally, or not accidentally, but I mean, like, it's not a memorial to him, but he's included in a memorial to the regiment. Like, any list that you see him?
Nope.
Just his picture in the regimental.
Just his picture in the regimental history, and the little blurb in Company F, Joseph Pierce.
Yeah.
And like they have every guy listed.
Yeah.
In the end of the regimental history.
So they just have his name under his picture, or
I think it's his name.
Nothing about him.
There was actually a trip that a lot of the veterans take, and we might get into this more a little bit later on.
Yeah.
where they visit the battlefields that meant the most to them, which is Antietam, Gettysburg, and a place called Morton's Ford, which we'll talk about.
Oh.
That's in this souvenir book, right?
Yeah,
of their traveling. Is he in that book? I don't
think he's mentioned one time in any of his books.
So he didn't go on the soiree.
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay.
But he, when does he leave service?
They all left. What was the end of May? 65. Yeah.
Okay, so he goes all the way.
Oh, he was there right at the end.
Yeah.
He was there, but they didn't fight in a lot of battles. They had a few battles: Ream Station, Hatcher's Run. It wasn't like they had a lot of battles, a lot of casualties in that last part of the war.
Yeah, there's a way. Do you remember what it says on their monument off the top of your head?
I do not.
Okay, I'll look it up. But go ahead, tell another story.
But I was just going to re-mention that this souvenir book, those 3 battles, I think they focused on in that souvenir book because that was the 3 battles where they took the most casualties.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fredericksburg wasn't in that one.
They didn't go back to Fredericksburg. You're right.
Yeah, they go to Antietam,
Morton's Ford.
Morton's Ford. Yeah.
So the back of the monument on the tablet there says.
Oh wait, they did go to Fredericksburg in the Remembrance book.
Did they?
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
They did go because they talk about the streets, going down Caroline Street and coming across and where they stayed that night and all that stuff. Yes, they did. They did.
In the extensive preparation that I did for this, I was going to look at that book again today.
Yeah.
I did not get a chance to.
I got it in my car.
So the text on the back tablet on the monument says the 14th Connecticut. There's a couple of phrases in here that I really thought were cool. The 14th Connecticut Volunteer Infantry left Connecticut August 25th, 1862, was assigned the Army of the Potomac September 7th, 1862, and mustered out May 31st, 1865. The regiment was engaged in 34 great battles and severe skirmishes.
Oh, of course.
Including Antietam, Fredericksburg, Chancellorsville, Gettysburg, Wilderness, Spotsylvania, Cold Harbor, Petersburg, and Appomattox. Lost and killed and died in the service, 366. In wounded and disabled, many hundreds. That's what it says, many hundreds. Original muster, 1,015. Recruits, 697. Final muster of original members, present and absent, 234. Pro Patria. What does that mean, Pro Patria? Come on, Chris. It means professional patriot.
Well, my Latin is lacking, certainly.
Can you Google that, Eric, please? Thank you. This monument erected by the survivors July 3rd, 1884. That's what I love about, not that this doesn't happen on other battlefields, but I walk around this one the most, is that, these monuments were, a lot of them, most of them, were put up by the guys themselves. Yeah. And that's cool.
Well, it's in many, many cases, the story that they want us to remember about them.
Yeah.
As is evidenced.
And these guys fought in great battles and severe skirmishes. Yeah. I just thought that was cool. I wanted to share that with the audience.
And we learned some Latin today.
We did learn. Well, we haven't yet. Eric?
For one's country.
For one's country. Pro Patria.
Per AI.
You know
what?
Per AI.
You know what would have known that? Dan Hayden.
Yeah.
He would have known that.
Well, let's talk about Dan real quick.
Okay, Dan Hayden.
Dan Hayden is the what's his exact title? Executive director.
He's the executive director of
the New England Civil War Museum in Vernon, Connecticut.
Okay.
And if you have any interest in the 14th Connecticut in particular, that's where you want to go.
Okay.
But the museum itself is really cool. A lot of great displays, a lot of great artifacts. One of my favorite stories, they have a photograph of the veterans from the 14th Connecticut hanging up on the wall.
Yeah.
And when they took the photo, and Frank, you're going to have to correct me if I'm wrong here, there were three members that weren't there?
Yeah, they photoshopped.
And they do an 1800s version of Photoshop.
Oh.
and they put them into this photograph.
Really?
And, when I visited Dan, he points at this and he says, see if you can pick them out. And you can pick them out, but it's pretty tough.
It's hard.
Really?
It's pretty tough. So they did a good job.
Huh.
Yeah, with I think it was version 1 of Photoshop. Maybe even an earlier version.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, they had ways of manipulating photographs back then. Yeah.
But I'll tell you that museum is fantastic. It's a great little museum.
What town is it in?
It's in Vernon.
Vernon.
The Rockville section of Vernon.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. Well, if I'm ever up there, we'll have to check that out.
It was the original GAR hall.
Okay.
Of these guys, of the area, and a lot of them were the guys at the 14th Connecticut Company D. That was their hall.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you can find them on Facebook, New England Civil War Museum. You can make a donation. You know,
I know one cool thing about Ben Hurst. I was talking about him.
Yeah.
Well-liked guy in the area. They come home, and I saw the playbill of this. They came home, and in the 1870s, they put a play on called The Battle of Gettysburg.
Huh.
We don't have any record of what was in the play, but we have the playbill.
Oh, that's cool.
And Ben Hurst played himself.
Did he?
Did he write it? Who wrote it?
It doesn't say. I don't think it said on it who wrote it, but they had the people in their names, what they did.
That would be a script to find.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, that would be really neat.
The play involved a barn and torches.
Did that play involve a barn and torches?
Yeah, they could only do the play once.
Well, I don't know, but we have a reenactor in Connecticut. His name's Pyro.
Yeah.
His nickname's Pyro.
But Pyro's an awesome cook.
Yeah, he's an awesome cook.
Yeah.
You got to have a good cook around.
That's right.
Graham Foose, he says, what was the veteran's opinion of the 14th Connecticut regarding the burning of the Bliss Farm prior to the charge? So, okay, keeping his question in mind, let's get into the battle so that makes more sense, because that's a little out of context that I read that.
Yeah.
That was my fault.
Yeah, so, and like I said, you guys did a show on this previously.
Many years ago.
Yeah, but, Mike Rupert did a good job of talking about the action at the Bliss Farm. But, the essential story is that the Confederates occupy that area in a heavy skirmish line after July 1st as Lee's extending the line down, as they're trying to figure out, okay, Lee is trying to figure out how am I going to attack the Union line.
Mm-hmm.
So skirmishers go out, they occupy the area of the Bliss Farm, which is owned by William and Adeline Bliss. It's got a Pennsylvania bank barn, as many farms around here do. Walls of mortared stone and brick. I think it's on two sides, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was a big fortified. The barn was very solid. It had a stone and then brick on the upper part.
Right.
Brick on the upper part.
Yeah, and I think I remember Mike making the comment that, because your livelihood is farming, the Bliss Farm was a good example of you put the money into the barn, not necessarily into the house.
Right. Yeah.
So the barn is solid.
Right.
The barn is very solid. And there's some good descriptions of it. I think Woody Christ, in his book about the Bliss Farm, which has been republished, good description of it. Good description by Chaplain Stevens, who Frank mentioned earlier. It's 75 feet long, 33 feet wide, with a 50-foot long house as well. It's got a 10-foot overhang, whereas most other barns had 6 to 7 feet. So
it sounds like a pretty big barn.
Yeah. And the wood overhangs are kind of common to help protect animals and whatnot. So kind of the standard style, but it ends up being like this Gibraltar, if you will, for at first the Confederate skirmishers, and there's going to be over July 2nd and July 3rd a lot of back and forth, and it's going to involve guys like the 12th New Jersey, 1st Delaware, the 14th Connecticut. You've got Woodruff's battery and Arnold's battery kind of surrounding them that are firing back and forth. On the Confederate side, it's going to involve Posey's guys and Wright's guys. Early on, it's going to involve Scales guys, but they get pulled out. They had gotten really decimated. I think we've talked about that.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Shows.
Yeah, we did an episode on that.
Got decimated on July 1st.
Yep.
They go from like 1,400 down to, I think they had 1,351 guys. They end up with like 500.
Yeah.
After July 1st.
Yeah.
So, about all you can really do with them is use them for skirmishers under a guy named Lawrence. Or Lawrence. Don't call me Lawrence.
Don't call me Lawrence.
So, they're there for a while, but then they get pulled back. Others get sent in. So you got all this back and forth. It involves in a certain amount of time before Willard's brigade is sent down to help out, a little bit farther south on the field. It involves the 39th New York being sent out there. They run into a little bit of trouble. Hayes is going to go down there and deal with the 39th personally, which is kind of an interesting story. That was kind of his pet project, was the 39th New York, the Garibaldi Guard. They're down to 4 companies. There's a lot of corruption and other things. One of my favorite lines about the 39th New York, because that was, my great-great-grandfather's regiment.
Right.
So I go into the park one day to do research on the 39th New York, and John Heiser's there. And if anybody's ever had the experience of working with John in the library, fantastic guy. He's retired now. But the park library, you just tell him a subject and he'd pull all these resources for you. And, still, you have a conversation with John today. He's still got all this,
floating around in his head. Yeah.
Yeah. So I go in there one day and I say, hey, John, I've got, want to do some research on the 39th New York. And he goes, 39th New York, just nothing but pickpockets, scoundrels, and thieves. And he says, what's your interest in them? And I say, well, it's my great-great-grandfather's regiment. And he goes, oh. But he proceeded to, pull all these documents. Well, as it turns out, and I don't know, do we ever do a show on the 39th? I know we've done Willard.
No, we should do a 39th. We haven't, no.
But, they're chock full of all sorts of, scallywags, if you will. Not my great-great-grandfather, of course, but everybody else. And their commander, a guy by the name of Diutzi, runs into some problems, ends up doing time in Sing Sing for all this stuff. So it's a great story. But as it pertains to this, Hayes is really trying to use these guys and get some redemption for Willard's brigade and some redemption for the 39th New York. So he's been working with them all through the spring of 63. And the 39th gets sent down there to the Bliss Farm for a while, and he has to go down there and help untangle them and get them back during a certain part of the battle. But again, these regiments are all going in and out. So finally, and I love to give multiple choice. The decision is made to burn the barn.
Right.
So it involves a couple of different stories.
Yeah, this is what confused me when I was looking into this. Go ahead.
Yeah, so like I say, you get multiple choice on the who, but it does seem to involve,
the Rolling Stones as well.
Well, a guy from the, there's a guy named Lieutenant Frederick Seymour.
He's from the 14th.
Yep.
He's in the 14th.
And he's basically, asks his commander Smith, what happens if they can't hold the barn, and Smith replies, we don't know the word can't, but then he tells them, well, if they make it too hot, burn it down, burn the buildings, and return to the line. Seymour is wounded, in the run down there. He ends up not going out to the barn. He's shot in the leg, but he might have told some of the others, about that order to burn it if you can't hold it. Next choice, so that's choice 1. Choice 2 is the 111th New York. There's a guy named Hitchcock who writes about gathering papers and matches and riding out. This is a really good scenario because he's very specific about
right.
it. But, and choice number 3 is a captain named Postles from the 1st Delaware, which there's an interesting story there where he ends up getting the awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions going out there. So you got all these different choices about who actually.
I'll take 3.
It.
So, why do you think we have 3 different choices there? Is it that all 3 of those stories are true?
Well, I think they're all true.
Yeah,
I think they're all.
So you think
true.
they're all true, but okay.
Okay, so here's what happens.
Yeah.
The 14th lights it, the Confederates blow it out. The 111th lights it, the Confederates blow it out, and then Postles goes down there and lights it, and it sticks. I don't know.
I was gonna say that sounds like a cartoon where they light a bomb and one blows it out, and then it comes back and it lights it.
Yeah. Well, it's because of all the back and forth and all the different actions. Yeah, all 3 could be true. All 3 could be given the order. Captain Postles of the 1st Delaware is the one that's awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for it, but The problem is when it finally does get set on fire, all the guys of the 14th Connecticut, they've driven the Confederates out of it, and they're in the barn in the house. And so it's time to get them out. Right. So do you want to kind of cover?
So another way. So what you're saying is that they're out there before the order to torch it comes, and so in other words, they're out there, and someone has to come from the line to get them out of the houses because there's people coming out to set. So it could be that they were out there, and these other guys from the 1st Delaware and what was the other one?
12th New Jersey.
12th New Jersey.
Well, 111th New York.
111th New York. Yeah.
12th New Jersey. Though, I think they have an.
We're not giving any of those guys credit, okay? Because we know who burnt the barn.
Yeah.
It was the 14th Connecticut. Because Theodore Ellis said so.
Yeah, because it's in the official report here. Let's see, where should I start it? At 2 p.m., the enemy opened upon us. This is the same time. No, this is before. It's not. They did it. Wait, hold on. Skirmishing commenced briskly along our front at 8 a.m. The 1st Delaware Volunteers were sent out as skirmishers, and 108th New York Volunteers were assigned to the support of Woodruff's battery, even though they looked like a bunch of dandies with their white gloves. At 2 p.m.
Excellent description.
That's what they say. 4 companies of the 12th New Jersey Volunteers were sent out to retake the barn to dislodge the enemy's sharpshooters, which they succeeded in doing, capturing 92 prisoners, including 7 commissioned officers. The enemy advanced in turn and recaptured the barn. The 1st Delaware Volunteers and 4 more companies of the 12th New Jersey, under the command of Captain Thompson, 12th New Jersey, were subsequently sent to again take possession of the barn, which they did, having taken 10 prisoners, one of whom was a major. Observing that the enemy was moving in force along a ravine toward the barn, Captain Thompson thought it proper to retire. Firing ceased around 9 p.m. So this, I guess, well, I thought he had mentioned torching the barn. Well, keep talking. I'll find it.
Well, I want to focus a little bit on postals, because there is a description in a book about the different men that were awarded Medal of Honor, and him being one of them. And now they talk about it happening on July 2nd. I think most accounts it's July 3rd.
Burning it on July 2nd?
Yeah.
Who's saying this?
Well, this is again.
This the New Jersey description of it?
No, this is first Delaware, but obviously there's some confusion, on their part. But the story goes with Postles, if that's how you pronounce his name, that Hayes, will because of all this back and forth, have the men in the barn take that damn White House and hold it at all hazards. And they're asking who's going to go out and give that order.
Right.
And Postles describes sitting on a rock with one arm through the bridle of his horse, his head's in his hands. He hasn't been feeling well. He's barely able to continue on duty. And he said, not hearing any response to the general's question, I raised my head saying, I will take it, sir. And he said, well, Postles, you need no instructions from me. And he talks about throwing the rein over the horses' heads, mounting it, and riding down across the Emmitsburg Road. And he puts the horse into a gentle lope. And as soon as he crosses the Emmitsburg Road, then he's taking fire from the house. It's growing hotter as he gets close. And
is he still loping at this point, or has he moved into a gallop?
Well, I think I've seen one where it's kind of, and maybe this is from Mike, that it's described as kind of the horse is
bouncing.
Is bouncing.
Just a lope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to make it, hard to kill him. He concludes, this is Postles, that the reason that he wasn't hit was because he was on horseback in motion, but should he stop at the barn, he could get killed. So his only chance of safety was to keep the horse in motion and not let it stand. So as he rides up to the barn, he throws his whole weight into the bridle, at the same time raising both heels, spurring the horse on and holding him there. And he describes the poor brute, his sides torn up by my spurs and his mouth lacerated and bleeding from the cruel curb bit, reared and kicked and plunged, so that I was as bad a mark as though in full gallop. So an officer comes to the door of the barn, touches his hat to me for orders. I called out at the top of my voice, tell the officer in command here to take that house with one company of sharpshooters and hold it at all hazards. So far we haven't heard about him relaying the order to put fire on it. So it could be that while this action happened, it could happen on July 2nd, does not involve burning of the barn. And I think I read somewhere when he gets back, the Confederates are firing at him, and he gets back up to the line. I think I read one account where doesn't he turn around and
he doffs his
hat,
and they cheer him.
And they cheer him.
The line erupts in a cheer.
Unlike the wounded guy that they're trying to shoot, But he does get back, and he talks about running into General Hancock, who's been watching this, and Hancock raises his hat to thank and congratulate him, and the men in the barn on the receipt of his order proceeded to charge. They take the damn White House. They capture 40 prisoners. And when those prisoners are brought in, they take a look at him, and they recognize that he was the guy that rode out there. And one of the Confederates says, well, sir, I guess your time ain't come yet. Upon asking why, he says, well, I had 3 fair shots at you, and there are plenty more fellows here who had as many. And he had been close to them, of course, and made it out. So that's why he's given the Medal of Honor for going down and giving that order to, they occupy the barn, but then to occupy the house.
Yeah, wow.
So
got what do they call that? Their brass balls to do something like that, right? Especially on a horse. Like, didn't the other guy, I think from the 111th, didn't he crawl out there?
I think so.
Yeah, somebody crawled.
Yeah, I think
that's the smart guy. He's the guy I want next to me in the foxhole, not this guy on the horse. Loping around.
But that barn, you talk about the strength of that barn. The barn, most of the openings faced the Union line.
Yeah.
Because it was a bank barn, and there was very few openings the other way. So every time the Confederates had it, they had a lot of shooting opportunities toward the Union Ridge.
Yeah.
Union get it. There's not a lot of places
you'd have to poke holes.
There's not a lot of places to shoot out against the Confederate forces. And the house was, they talk about the house was very thin. The bullets went right through the wall.
So it was a wooden house, I'm assuming.
And that's when Ellis was sent out there with the last four companies. First Moore went out there with the first 4, took the barn. Ellis went out there to take the house.
And we're talking July 3rd, right?
July 3rd, in the morning, July 3rd. And Ellis said, this house is not able to hold it. It's a death trap for the guys.
Yeah.
And then that Postle, Seymour doesn't make it. And they think Hitchcock showed up he went earlier than Postle, but he's running out there, crawling, whatever you want to say, he's crawling out there. Okay. And they think they got there about the same time in some ways, that they were very close. But Postle gets credit for, because he stuck out more,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things that it's all, all this confusion and things happening at the same time. But the 14th Connecticut is in the barn. In the house too?
In the house too, yeah. They're in the house.
With 8 companies now.
Yeah. 8 companies out there. The 2 other companies are on skirmish line, just about 200 and some yards to the left of the barn and house.
Okay.
They're in the skirmish line there. So they saw all this happening. They saw all this happening and stuff. And that it was their guys down there. And that was later on when Batchelor was writing his papers. He asked for testimony about who actually really burnt it. Because it always came back, a lot of the 12th New Jersey guys tried to say they did it.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
It didn't happen.
Not the Jersey boys.
No. Not the Jersey boys. No, it didn't happen. I hate to take their credit away, but,
Well, actually, we have a call from the New Jersey of the Southern Hemisphere.
Here we go.
We have Grant. You're on the air, sir.
Hello?
It takes a while for it to get down to Australia. Yes, hello, Grant.
Hello?
Hello.
Is that really Matt?
Yeah. Yes, it's really me. This is not the Thursday show, Grant.
Wow.
This is not time for goofing around.
Oh, I'm such a big fan.
I know. Would you?
How's it going?
It's fine, Brick Wall. Would you like to ask a question to our guests? Brick Wall.
Oh, go ahead, far away.
Okay. All right, Grant. Now, seriously, I'm about to.
Seriously. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm at work at the moment, so I haven't heard the whole show, I'm afraid. But have you talked about the soldier who won the Medal of Honor on the third day of the battle by capturing a flag from Tennessee?
We haven't gotten there yet, Grant.
Can you tell that story?
I'll put that down on my list so that we don't forget it when we get to that point. Okay, bud?
Okay, and can I just, when you get to that, can you just talk about...
Screen kid, I know experience.
Can you, if you can just, in addition to that, can you just talk about if capturing the flag was a routine thing? Was it official policy from the generals, or was it just an initiative thing that individual soldier would see and take advantage of?
I could answer that question, Grant. That's easy. It's actually what they decided to settle the conflicts of the Civil War by playing capture the flag. But they forgot to bring paintball guns, and they brought muskets instead, and then you know how it goes. One guy shoots another guy, and it escalates. And that's really how the Civil War started.
Wow, that is such a good explanation.
Thank you.
But for lack of a paintball gun.
Thank you. What, Eric?
Big paintballs at Fort Sumter.
Could not. The fuses on the Confederate paintballs weren't good enough yet, so they had to just resort to using regular guns.
That's right. Yeah. They hadn't really perfected that technology. All right, Grant, I wrote that down in my notes. Anything else that's actually relevant at this moment?
Yeah, just one more thing. Goodbye.
All right, thank you, Grant. 717-420-1978 is the number you want to call if you want to ask a question to a Gettysburg Guide for free, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't cost you anything. Yes, Eric.
Hey, I have, I got to find it, darn it. Again, a chat that I think I should read. A gentleman by the name of Dan Hayden says, Frank is just getting over a case of moon blindness.
All right, you're getting over a case of moon blindness.
There was a soldier in the 14th got moon blindness.
Okay, go ahead.
In the war.
Tell us about this.
Schleister. And he's the only soldier in the 14th that showed up at every roll call through all 3 years. That's pretty good.
Pretty perfect attendance?
Pretty impressive. Yeah. Perfect attendance. Every roll call.
Right, every roll call.
He's there. And for a few weeks in 64, they told him, don't, and this is an old wives' tale, don't sleep when the moon's out, full moon's out. Don't sleep with your eyes toward the moon. So he wakes up the next day. He doesn't realize anything's wrong. But at night, the next night, he can't see in the dark. Okay, now, they really think this is a vitamin deficiency that took over. Okay. That's what happened to him. But he went out on picket duty, okay, and he can't see anybody. So he ends up, he's so worried, I can't see anything, and he doesn't want to tell anybody. He ends up surrendering. He hears this noise in front of him, and he ends up surrendering to another group of Union soldiers.
It's lucky.
And they asked him, what are you doing? What's wrong with you?
So, and he thought he had moon blindness.
He couldn't see,
but
in the
really
dark
it was
for
probably
about
a vitamin.
Couple weeks. They think, I've read some. They think it's a vitamin deficiency that happened to him.
I mean, it's not so odd that you can't see in the dark. It's dark, but was it a full moon night?
Well, that's what they said.
That's what they said. Yeah, that is odd because you can see pretty well.
I think lack of vitamin A plays a.
I believe A and. Is it A and K?
But the man made it.
And K.
He made it.
He made it.
He made it through every day, every roll call in the morning.
What about niacin, Court? Does niacin have anything to do with that?
If you give the Union Army niacin in 61, war's over in 60. Never even start.
It never even starts. They end the beginning. Michael 6 Questions Lentz has a super chat here. He says, Dulce et decorum est is a famous war poem by Wilfred Owen from World War I and features the phrase Dulce et decorum est pro patria mori, which of course, let me figure this out with my my Latin knowledge. Dulce, Spanish for candy, I think. So let's say sweet sugar something.
So it's
sweet.
like taking candy from a baby.
It's like I think that's where he's going with this.
Sugared coffee.
War is taking candy from a baby, I think is what it says.
Mm-hmm.
Et decorum. Let's come back to that. Est pro patria, which is what? For one's country, we said. And mori, so like morte. So that has to be death.
That's a more.
Decorum, decorate, honor. So it is a sweet honor to die for your country.
Close.
Google it.
Pretty close.
Not bad.
It is sweet and honorable to die for one's country. That's what it is. That's what it is. I just looked it up. Okay.
So was there a question in there somewhere, or is
Mike he said it is sweet and fitting to Mike, I should have just read the next sentence. He said it is sweet and fitting to die for one's country. Close, Mike. Not quite there. I put it in Google Translate. But no, that was it. But he paid, so I had to read it. That's how it goes.
I expect he's going to use that on his tour.
I hope so. I hope so.
You might even hear it at Brandy Station.
I hope he tries it out this Saturday to see. By the way, that you could get a Ron Burgundy moment because if you pay, especially if you pay big, I have to read what you write. I won't have a bleep button. I'll say whatever you want. Okay, so where were we now? So Battle of Gettysburg. Let's get focused here. So
let's just say Hayes orders the barn burned. It happens. But
you want to show us?
Yeah, Frank's got some good.
This is Dale Gallen. It's a small version of his print. It shows the actual barn and house. What it looked like. It was a huge house.
That is a huge house.
Huge, 2 front doors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like 2 sections. Yeah. What, is it like an addition or something?
Well, one of those doors, what I've always heard, was used as a death room. When somebody in the family died, they always had the second door for that reason.
Okay.
That's what I had. I'm just.
We're losing so many relatives. We might as well build a death door.
Throw an extra door.
Yeah.
But that's supposed to be the 14th burning it. So
okay.
That's proof.
And you can see see the barn back there. I mean that kind of looks like the like the Spangler Farm barn kind of, right? It's kind of hard to tell, but yeah.
Yeah.
Your solid Pennsylvania bank.
Yeah. Or the McPherson barn. It's got both. Looks like both.
Yeah, they're a lot alike.
Yeah, they all look the same. They all look the same. They all copied each other. All right. So continue now. So they're wherever you were left off there.
Okay, where were we?
I have no idea where we were.
We were talking about the Bliss Farm at the end of it.
Yeah. So that's going to come into play with Pickett's charge because you now have smoldering remains, of course, of the barn and the house.
Mm-hmm.
Once everybody's pulled out of there and it's burned down. So, we look at Pickett's charge today. We stand in the North Carolina Monument, and you look out across that area where the Bliss Farm was, and it's just kind of a gentle slope all the way up to Cemetery Ridge.
Yeah.
And of course, you have the battle for Long Lane with the skirmishers.
Right.
And Colt Park.
You're right. The battle of Colt Park.
The mighty Battle of Colt Park. Before the houses were there, but you look at it now, and it's like, okay, well they went across the field, but when you start to consider, the portion of Pickett's charge that's going across, and you got now the smoldering remains. Very hard to keep command and control in and around that for the guys in Pickett's charge. You've got Brockenbrough on your left that you're going to run up against all that artillery on Cemetery Hill. And so your left is unsupported. You've got the 8th Ohio that's going to swing out and be shooting into them from there. So, you've got a whole lot of problems that if you stand there today and you look across it, it's like, well, it's just you go across the field.
Right.
Over on the right with the ground that undulates, the Virginians had a much more difficult, time of it, I guess you could argue. But, when they get down in some of those undulations, they're able to regroup. They don't have that on the left hand side.
No, it's pretty flat over there. Yeah, you're right.
Pretty flat. And as you're looking at it, if you don't consider the fact that, I mean, you saw in the painting, it's a sizable barn and a sizable house, and it's burned down and it's smoldering. You're not going to march over that.
No.
You have to go around that.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah.
And then that last part is, I don't know if you can describe it as a gentle slope up. It's a pretty serious slope.
And then there's a little dip before Emmitsburg Road, which is where they regrouped. The 14th regrouped in that area when they came back from the burning of the barn. They regrouped there.
Yeah, when you're looking from the Confederate line, it looks even flatter than the rest of Pickett's charge looks, right? Like where the Virginians had to go. It's deceptively flat. But we've walked that a couple of times, but past the Bliss Farm, either from the Union line or the Confederate line. We've done both ways, and there is a slope going up when you're heading towards the Union line. There doesn't look like it from the Confederate line. That's the thing,
right?
And then it's also actually going to the Confederate line too. I mean, because they're both ridges.
Yes.
So you're in that land between the two ridges, that little valley there. It's not very obvious from either ridge until you actually go and walk down into it, and you realize, oh yeah, this is low ground.
Yeah, and again, I want to make the point that the left side, which is Tennesseans, North Carolinians, some Virginians under Brockenbrough. I think there's some Mississippians, that are on that ridge too. But it's a lot more gentle without the benefit of having that undulation, which gives the Virginians on the right-hand side some protection.
Right.
And, a lot of the Union accounts, they'll write, it looked like they were rising up from the ground.
Yeah.
Because first they see the tips of the bayonets, and then they see the guns, and they see the soldiers as they come up out of the undulations.
Yeah.
So they're getting on the right side of Pickett's men, they're getting some protection so that they can regroup. And, they're taking heavy casualties. I don't want to make any light statements about that. But on the left-hand side, you've got the smoldering remains and no protection. You don't have that same undulation on the left-hand side.
Right.
And, not to get too much into Brockenbrough, but, those guys, aside from being a demoralized brigade, and aside from taking heavy casualties on July 1st, they're dealing with a lack of protection as well against all that artillery.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you drive by now, it's a nice gentle slope.
Yeah.
Looks, all I have to do is go across this.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is that for the left of the Pickett Pettigrew assault, the thing that throws you off is Long Lane intersecting, or would it be intersecting or it's going. It borders off the Pickett's charge field. And so and then there's Colt Park. And so it gives you this boundary, this artificial boundary as to where the battlefield ended, but it didn't end there. It went into Colt Park.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's there. Yeah. And then nobody from Rhodes's division is coming forward. So you've
farther up.
Yeah, farther up. Like it's just the Pickett Pettigrew section of the line that is supposed to go forward.
Yeah.
Which again makes it sound so insane.
For lack of proper concert of action, as Robert E. Lee.
Yes, right. Okay, so
so now we've talked about topography. So
yes,
we'll you want to?
I want to give you one little story before we leave the Bliss Farm.
Go ahead.
It's just one I found. I think it's a great little story. It's about this guy Albert DeForest when they're burning the barn. What they thought, what these guys are going through, they're getting shot at from all over the place. They start to burn the barn, and his thought, he was a sergeant, he decided, hey, I'm going to ask Doughton, the adjutant Doughton who was out there, can I round up these chickens? So he got a bunch of his guys, and they grabbed a bunch of the chickens. They're worried about that.
Chicken dinner.
Well, they were. Yeah. They started cooking them back up on the line while they took the little break, the little lull in the fighting before the bombardment. They're cooking these chickens right behind the line. And then the bombardment starts, and now they never saw the chickens again. Probably got blown to pieces or whatever happened.
winner, chicken.
Or somebody behind the line stole them, and they're like, "Hey, they're not looking."
Yeah, no fooling. Because they all went up, running up to the stone wall.
Yeah,
and everything's gone.
Yeah. Bob, you're on the air, sir.
Well, good day. I'd like to say hello from Arizona, and I would like to say hello to Mr. Niederwerfer. I have reenacted with him as the 14th Connecticut, so I know he knows what he's talking about. Just wanted to call because I do watch the show.
Oh, thank you very much, Bob. I appreciate that.
Okay. Well, again, watching your show. Hi to Frank and Claire also.
Thanks, Bob.
Guys, have a good day. Great.
Hey, Bob, take care.
You too, Frank. Thank you. Or Bob, thanks. Have a good one.
Bob served in Vietnam.
Oh, nice.
2 tours.
I mean, not nice.
2 tours there.
2 tours in Vietnam.
Yep.
And he's in Arizona now.
Yeah.
Living the high life.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Living the hot life.
The hot life. All right. So where do we leave off then?
So
July 3rd
started. We're on July 3rd. We're back to the line.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'll turn it over to you for
okay.
All right. Back to the line.
The bombardment started, and the 14th they just crowded into the line. And Arnold's batteries to the left there in that area, and they're firing away. So after the bombardment ends, well, they talked about they scrunched up against it. I remember Hinks mentioned something in the regimental history about he's laying there, and the sweat coming off him. This is hour and a half, 2 hours, is making mud underneath him.
Oh my God!
Because he's yeah.
Can you imagine?
No. And their skirmish line, their pickets, Company B and D, are down on Emmitsburg Road and out on the picket line, just hugging the ground.
Yeah.
Because Ben Hurst, he talks about a guy getting hit right there, and they couldn't
on the
move.
Picket line.
They couldn't dare moving. Bad shots, undershot, or
okay.
Just because they couldn't move. All this is going on.
Yeah.
This noise is
It's going both ways over their heads.
It's total craziness.
Jesus.
So then, as the bombardment stopped, that's when they got back to they regrouped in the road, Emmitsburg, because it was sunken a little bit.
Right.
I guess the descriptions of it is a couple feet below
the
surface.
I think in a lot of cases it's 5 feet deeper than what you see today.
Okay, 5 feet.
But
okay,
there's a lot of references to it as the sunken lane or sunken road.
That's why a lot of these Confederate soldiers probably, when they hit that road, said, "I'm not going
any further."
I love in the movie where he asked the kid about what are you going to think about tomorrow.
Yeah.
I would have just said, at least I'm going to be thinking tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll be here to think it all. Yeah. What do you think of yourself tomorrow? Who cares, old man?
Yeah, I know, really.
Stick your hat in the sword and get out of my face. Yeah, that would be exactly where I would stay. If I could get that far unscathed, or even slightly scathed,
because
I'm staying there.
You must have, as Chris must have read this, and I think most of the Confederate casualties were found in the road.
Yeah, if you look at the Elliot burial map,
that map,
the burials are, as I recall, it's been a while since I looked at it, but right before the fence on the west side, and right after the fence on the east side of the Emmitsburg Road. So, they're taking heavy casualties getting up to the first fence.
Yep.
They get some protection in the road, and then when they go over the second fence, they're taking heavy casualties as well. So if you look at the Elliot burial map, you'll see. It's just crowded in there. And in addition to that, to add insult to injury for them, you have probably canister being fired by Arnold's battery, Woodruff's battery. I think there's a story about Arnold's battery that they not only double shot the canister. I think there's one gun they triple shot.
I've heard that.
And when it fires, it ends up flipping backwards or flipping on its side or something.
And you know what? You know what's funny? And I didn't even notice until somewhere in this last year. I remember reading one of they had moved one of their batteries or one of their guns in front of the stone wall.
Arnold
did. Why'd they do that?
Like on the Confederate side of the wall?
No, just in front of their wall with no protection. They put it down in front there.
Yeah, on the Confederate side of the wall. Yeah.
Why did they do that? You ever hear why?
It seems to
me.
You're
not going to get closer.
Well, I think Bruce Trink. Bruce Trink wrote an article on Arnold's battery.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at that one. It's in Gettysburg magazine.
So they're against the wall, and then the Confederates they're coming up now. The whole march, and they portray this. The guys talk about this, about the grandness of this when it first started.
Yeah,
they're just watching these guys parade precision, coming across, disappearing, coming up again, going, through the thing. And then the whole thing of, like, what is there, about 5,000 Union soldiers on that line? They just rise up and fire.
Yeah.
Why would anybody have crossed the Emmitsburg? Why try to go over that fence? You got me.
No, it's like a killing zone.
Yeah.
Court, if you go to the camera 6 there you go. There's the Elliot map. Okay. And this is the area you're talking about here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And those are all Confederates.
Yeah.
So you got quite a bit.
They didn't bury them in the road. See, there's one.
So this is what, 7? Now, do you believe these numbers? 522. Was that 7? Was that 175 or 775?
176.
176 and then 106. It just there. So that's what? Court, let's do that math. 8, 9, 2,000 men right there.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. But still, it gives you an idea.
Yeah, you're talking.
Is the point.
Probably a brigade and a half.
Yeah.
Out of the 9. Right there.
I mean, do you think, because you don't see a ton of them out here. So do you think they would have been recovered, or there weren't that many that fell out here in the field, and most of them were here when they were in musket range?
Well, I don't think they started firing until...
No, they didn't. But
the canister.
But you got your artillery and everything.
Yeah, the long range stuff.
They're going to take casualties out in the field, and I think it was probably more. I mean, you can see a long line of them on the left, lower left there.
Oh, lower.
You can see some a little bit farther.
Oh yeah, down there at the bottom, way at the bottom here.
So I think it.
Oh, down here.
There you go.
It tells us more about the burial technique.
Okay.
Like you see in the photos on the Rose Farm.
Yeah.
Where you line the men up and then dig a grave, put the man in there, use the dirt from the next one. Yeah, it's trench burial. Yeah.
So I got a question.
All right, come near the microphone, please, so that people can hear you. They're all complaining.
Otherwise, it sounds like this.
Sounds like you're
voice
in a
from above.
Bathroom.
So here's my question, and I'm reading from Carol Reardon's Guide to Gettysburg. So only because you were talking about when they started taking casualties. And where the burials were. So Smith, the brigade leader, says, my men were directed to reserve their fire until the foe is within 50 yards. Okay, and then he goes on just to say some other things. So they're giving this heavy fire when they're close. But the 26th North Carolina reports, a major from the 26th North Carolina reports that within about 250 or 300 yards of the stone wall, they started to take heavy fire. So when do we think the fire actually happened? What North Carolina said they received, or when Smith said his brigade was starting to fire?
Thank you, Eric.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is one of those multiple choice questions.
Yeah.
But part of it too is you look at the angle of the Emmitsburg Road in relationship to the stone wall, which has its own angle.
It's in fact, it's the angle.
It's the angle, right? The angle. There's a an argument made. I think it's by Bruce Trink in Gettysburg magazine that the 26th North Carolina is actually farther north than where their monument is today. That was placed in the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
And he uses flag captures to help figure that out.
Okay.
That the 16th North Carolina was in that area, and he believes it just to be a recording error, if you will. But we like to put things on the battlefield in a nice compact.
Yeah, we like everything orderly.
Yeah, we want it to be able to be seen, and so did the veterans. When they're putting up their monuments and the roads and everything, the avenues, I should say. So I think it's a case where both could be true, because the left of Smith's line would be farther away from the Confederates than the right of Smith's line next to Woodruff's battery, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because of the angle.
Yeah, they'd be closer.
Yeah. On the right-hand side, they would be closer, right-hand of the Union side. So I think both could be true. And, accounts that you read, my good friend Wayne Motz told me one time, you read one account and you understand what happened. You read two and you're confused.
Right.
Read through it, three, and it's all over the place.
Yeah, three, and so I think that could be a case of what we're seeing here. We have a sort of an idea, of where these regiments were, because the veterans came back years later as they're in Congress and the Senate and all that, and they come up from Washington to help Batchelder mark the locations for monuments and monument lines and things like that. Well, can you think 3 years ago of a place on the field where you were exactly, that you'd be able to mark it exactly?
No, and this is the thing that always amazes me, is that they're able to get a roundabout area of where they were, let alone the spot. And I have to think, like, I tend to not believe, even if it's a veteran that says, this is the spot where I was standing when blank happened. Yeah. I have a hard time believing that, because I don't know. I've never been in combat, but from when I've talked to my friends, these questions that I had come up with, I talked to my combat friends, and I'm like, is it possible to even be thinking, hey, if ever I come back here, I'm going to remember this is the spot where I fired my first shot.
Yeah.
I don't think you're thinking that. You're not thinking about memorializing this battle or whatever. You're thinking of not getting shot and finding the people who are trying to shoot you and kill them first.
Yeah.
So,
and you've never been here.
You're
here for 3 days of terror.
Yeah. There's smoke everywhere. There's thousands of people around. There's artillery. There's there's farm fields, fences. Fences are torn down. The crops are trampled. Like, everything is. When you come back here in decades, it's not going to look anything like.
Yeah.
Well,
but also, some guys probably did remember.
Well, on the other hand, when you think of the Bryan Farm and you think of the Bliss Farm and the Emmitsburg Road, those didn't shift around.
True.
So the troops in and around those might have a better,
and I think like
of
Devil's Den or Little Round Top, you would have a better idea, because there's things that you can definitely remember,
right,
and recognize. But the middle of a field,
yeah,
and also that area we're talking about around the angle, you've got that angle in the wall. You have the Bryan Farm buildings there, so there are some landmarks. You have the road, the proximity to the road. These guys didn't just get there and start fighting. They've been there for 2 days. So they've become probably pretty acquainted with it. I bet you they had lunch at Pickett's buffet.
Yeah.
And
Before
so
it moved.
Well, I think those chickens ended up at KFC.
Well, then it was called Cornwallis's buffet. Oh yeah, that's where they got the chickens from.
That's right. Lifelong supply.
Don't forget the round of mini golf.
Oh yeah, and then they played mini golf.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think when you take a look at a regiment like the 14th Connecticut, they're in that area pretty much for the whole battle. So I would tend to believe, their observations more.
Yeah, it's like a campsite. You tend to get very familiar with it.
The 26th North Carolina was heavily involved in day one, took a lot of casualties in day one. They're heavily involved in day three, and take heavy casualties. I think it would be less likely that they could pinpoint a spot.
Yeah.
See, for the 14th guys, they were there the whole next day.
Right.
The whole day they spent there. So that would have cemented this thought of what what exactly happened as they thought about it. Nothing happened that day. They were burying dead, looking through the bodies and stuff.
It had to be such a mess. That whole killing field in front of that wall.
Yeah.
Just a mess. Not to mention, not just the bodies, but the ground had to be torn up from all the artillery misses that just, burrowed into the ground. That's the other thing. And, freshly turned soil stinks. So you got that like that added to the smell of just all that rot and decay and blood. And
you just mentioned something that saved the 14th.
What?
That ledge in front of the wall.
Ah.
Hinks talks about that. William Hinks. He talks about that because he talks that shot was, the stuff went over and they're crouched against the wall, but anything that hit that ledge bounced over them. And normally would have burrowed on.
Like it ricocheted off. Yeah.
And they mentioned that. That's why they didn't lose anybody. If they have one wounded guy in the bombardment?
From the horse.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about when they were crouched against the wall.
According to the report, none.
He
said that one guy injured from the horse.
Yeah.
They didn't take any losses during the bombardment.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they only lost a couple during the attack.
Yeah.
And a couple of those were the foolish guys that got up and started cheering.
Well, what do you think? Yeah, what do you think's going to happen, bud? Yeah.
So we did have the request to talk about Hinks and the
flags.
Do you want to show the painting and talk
about it? Wait, hold on. Before you do that, let me just get this guy off the phone here so he doesn't have to keep waiting. Peter Zach, you're on the air, sir.
Matt, happy belated birthday.
Oh, thank you, Peter. Oh.
I thought you looked older.
Yes, I do. Thank you for being the first one to say it today. What can I do for you, sir?
Oh, no problem. My question is, and I've always wondered this, and I've never really found it out, was, like the 14th, they were there for quite a while, and they had no inclination to entrench. Have they found any information, or, has that ever been written about how they thought about doing it, or what was the deal with that?
Not that I ever heard of that. They used that wall.
Used the wall.
That's all they used.
Chris, there was a request. Put the mic to your mouth, not your eyeball.
Okay.
Yeah. Pull it to you so you don't have to lean in. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
All right.
Be comfortable and just pull it to you there. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Peter, go ahead.
Oh, well, my question was about the why they never really entrenched there if they were there, for such a long period of time. I mean, that stone wall, even after the photographs afterwards, I mean, that wall was tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they piled up on, didn't they put stuff on top of it?
Well, I think that's a natural thing to do on the battlefield, but I think that the use of entrenchments is not as prevalent in 63 as you'll find in 64. Yeah. It's going on at Culp's Hill because Greene ordered it against Geary's wishes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not as prevalent on other parts of the battlefield. So they're using naturally what they have, which there is the stone wall.
So, and then naturally they would get some fence rails or something and pile them up on top to make it a little taller if they had to.
A lot of wood taken from the Bryant farm.
Yeah.
If you look at the photograph.
One thing you got to think is the 14th only went up to that wall after they got back from the Bliss Farm. And then after the bombardment ended, Arnold's battery pulled out. And they just extended their line down to cover that to the 71st Pennsylvania, I think it was there. And they just extended it. They were a thin line.
Yeah.
But they had a lot of guys with the Sharps rifles. One estimate from one veteran said that there's 100 guys there, 105 or whatever was left there. Half of them had the Sharps rifle. So they were putting down... They could put down quite a bit of firepower.
Okay, I didn't know that. So they had the Sharps rifle.
Well, the two of the companies had it when they left at the beginning of the war. So 200 out of the 1,000 had it.
Yeah.
And so you got to figure if they came to Gettysburg 172, they know some of these guys kept their Springfields. But they know one guy, I read this, he estimated that they had about half of them were using the Sharps rifle. So that lays down 4 or 5 times more firepower than the Springfield in the per minute.
Right.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah. Damn right it does. So they replaced, you're right. It's the 71st PA. Part of the 71st PA is... And,
it was overlapped a little bit there.
The east angle, or what do we call that? The inner angle?
Inner angle?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other part is at the outer angle. Huh. Okay, anything else, Peter?
Oh, that's just it. I mean, it still puzzles me that, with the whole action with the Bliss Farm, taking fire and everything, they still never thought of entrenching there.
Well, are you talking about digging in or piling up?
Anything. I mean, you would think they would, for sitting there for so long in that vicinity, they would have been like, well, we've got to come out here eventually to deal with something or another.
Maybe.
It's just that usually when armies sit on a battlefield, they start digging in a little bit.
I think they do more in 64 than they do that in 63. But, I do believe that I've seen accounts, more at the angle, like where 69th PA, 72nd PA, where
there is some digging in.
They're doing a little bit digging in and piling up and things like that there. But like Frank mentioned, I mean, the 14th Connecticut isn't there, for a long time to be able to do that.
They didn't have any time, really.
So,
and
they were cooking their chickens.
Yeah, you got chickens.
When I stand behind the wall where the 69th PA is, like that whole stretch of wall, I feel vulnerable. When I stand where the 14th Connecticut is, I feel like this'll do. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's a little higher, and you feel like you have a better field of view. First of all, you do, because in front of the 69th PA and then the 59th New York, as you go down that line, there's that ledge out there where that marker is.
Yeah, the slash.
Is that what they call it? The slash? And it's almost, it blocks you. If you're standing and firing in that area, it's blocking your view unless somebody's standing right on top of it. So I feel much better at the 14th Connecticut. So I feel vulnerable on that other stretch of the line. So I could imagine that they would probably do more digging in there than they would where the 14th Connecticut was.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know how the road and the monuments have changed the topography. Is it higher? Is it lower?
Well, you also have the swimming pool.
Oh, yeah, and then the swimming pool. Well, that's further out there, yeah.
But
I'm saying, like, right along Hancock Avenue there, did they dig down or build up for the road, or did they just put it right on top of the ground? And then the other thing is the monuments behind the wall. Are they built up on a mound, or do they just plop them on the ground? So I don't know, if we say that the wall is short today, but was it that short back then, and did it have maybe rails? What do they call that type of fence where it's part stone and then they got the rails on top?
Yeah.
What is that called?
Horse high and pig tight.
Horse high and pig tight. There you go.
And so the cows can't, the animals can't get over it.
Right.
That's all.
So I mean, I would imagine maybe those were there when they arrived, and they probably took them down and piled them up better or something. Or
there is the photographs that were taken for the cyclorama, in the 1880s.
Yeah.
That could give you a pretty good indication. There's a guy standing on the wall, kind of to indicate where Pickett's men came over. That sort of thing.
Does it look taller than today? As tall as today? Shorter?
I think it's pretty close to.
Pretty close.
Pretty close, but it's maybe slightly taller.
That land could be built up a little bit where the monuments are.
Yeah.
Because you think of the land in even the cyclorama thing is flat behind there. It doesn't show any like dropping off or anything like that's a drop off now.
Right.
Yeah. And
into the road.
You could look at original photographs of the monuments when they were dedicated to get an idea.
Yeah.
The answer is probably somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, it's fascinating. The more you learn about this stuff, the more you kind of like talk yourself out of what you've come to believe, because you go, well, then they built the road.
There's a lot of begats.
Yeah.
This begat that.
Yeah, right.
Begat the other
right.
thing.
It's like the Bible.
Exactly.
I know that's what you were referring to, but
I was
referring to. I was going to say referencing, and then I said, no, let's go to referring.
Changed it in the middle.
Totally changed. Okay, Pete, thanks for the call. And for the birthday.
All right, thanks for doing this, guys.
Yeah, and for the birthday wishes, sir. Thank you very much. Okay, goodbye. Have a good one.
Nope.
Okay, now.
You want to talk Hinks?
Let's talk Hinks.
Okay. Do you want to show the picture first and then talk Hinks? Or?
If you want. This is a good picture by Steve Noon, if you want to take it up there and show. He's an artist in England.
Oh, yeah, I really like this one.
It shows the 14th Connecticut's position, but you'll see the Union guys running out in front of the line. That's William Hinks headed toward the 14th Tennessee flag. okay, and John Broach following them.
Cart.
And they don't show. They don't show George Brigham.
At it in
the third guy that jumped over was
Stop
George
being a
Brigham.
viewer, be an engineer.
Okay. But it gives you a good example of the firing. You see a lot of if you look at it close, you can see a lot of the Sharps rifles in there.
Uh-huh.
And you see the one gun of the Arnold's battery pushed out in front of the wall
up here.
Why? I mean, it's probably when I got this thing last year is when I.
Yeah, why would you need to do that?
I don't know.
Like,
well, you could keep it firing. You're not firing over your own men. So.
But you don't have to fire over your men. Just go up to the wall and say, "Get out of my way," and move to the either side. And
Now, you look at that depiction of the wall. Is that wall bigger than the one there now?
Not much.
Not much. A little bit maybe, but it's all flat behind it too.
And I'll bet that one of the things that happened to that wall is what we experienced with Culp's Little Round Top, in that people climb over it, and then it just becomes a rough, loose pile in a line of rocks because of all the climbing.
Well, the original use of these walls is not necessarily for it to be high. It's
Right.
as the farmers are clearing the field, they hit a rock and they throw it on their property line.
Right.
So when you see those stone walls, you're looking at old property lines.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Well, I mean, but I think they would have taken a little more care than to just toss them, right?
Depending on what they have inside there. If it's just crops, probably not.
Okay.
If you've got livestock in there somewhere, yeah, you want to, smaller livestock.
Sure, yeah. You want to keep them in.
Yeah, it's not going to keep out horses or cows, but
right.
They
certainly did not look, whether it was the farmer or the soldier who built them, like they do on Little Round Top now.
No.
Or out at Baxter's position where they look like they were.
I'll withhold comment.
Those are beautiful stone walls.
They're beautiful stone walls. See, Eric, they're beautiful stone walls, but I mean they're beautiful for like your backyard, But I understand why they made them that way. But that's not the way they looked.
Yeah, I mean, the park wants them to last.
Yeah,
So,
I get it. Yeah,
but
it's
yeah,
you
but
build them sturdy.
There's plenty of examples around the field that you can point to of what they probably look like.
Yeah,
which would probably not be even, and might be even a little wider than because, like you say, the stones fall down after a while. And, so.
Yeah,
you do have examples, but yeah, we have some beautiful walls around the battlefield.
We're back to stone walls again.
No. We're moving on with the story because some of us have to go to bed.
Yeah, you were telling the story of Hinks. So
go ahead. Let's wrap this up.
What Hinks
he just had a birthday. So
what Hinks did running out there, and these other guys all trying to go after that flag, was done by other guys in the Union Army. As the Confederates, the tide ended. Okay, and the 14th Connecticut is credited with shooting into where Armistead was. They had an oblique left order from Ellis. They fired. They saw Armistead. They saw this leader leading these guys in there, and they obliqued to the left and fired into that area. So maybe they're the ones that hit Armistead too. Not only burnt the Bliss Farm, might have got Armistead. Let's take credit for everything.
Let's start that rumor.
They did everything. Yeah.
So they did that, and so that happened to other guys. There's other guys in the 14th ran out there. Bacon, Chris Flynn, and they captured 5 battle flags that day. 2 of them nobody claimed why they captured them. Okay, but there's also guys that talked about this, and Frank Summers on the band, one of the band members, talks about this, that there was a 6th battle flag taken. But see, to be recorded, they had to be given to the officers, passed up the line to the officers. In this one, he said one of the guys took it and stuck it in his jacket to hide it. They wanted to send this home.
Okay.
So somewhere in Connecticut, there's a 6th battle flag sitting in somebody's attic.
That would be so cool if somebody found that.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But it happened all up and down the line. And that's where the 14th Connecticut took throwing losses, because that's when the guys got up and started cheering.
Yeah.
And like this Goodell guy from, William Goodell, he got killed. And Lieutenant Tibbetts got wounded just because they started cheering and stuff and going crazy on.
And Confederates weren't quite done.
No, they weren't quite done. There's guys that were going to still shoot. But the Confederates the tide had turned. The Hinks running out there. He ran out there when there was Confederates right there next to their flag. And he went out there and took his sword out and started waving his sword at all of them, and none of them shot him.
Because they were probably done.
He grabbed the flag and ran back.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why Broach was after the same flag. So, and I met, actually, I've reenacted with both their the great-great-grandsons, the great-grandsons of both these guys.
Really?
We reenacted that in the 150th Gettysburg reenactment out here on Pumping Station Road. That was part of the reenactment. We did it with those two grandsons.
So how many guys in the unit are descendants of men in the actual 14th Connecticut?
In our unit, there's just there's guys that have relatives. In the unit, Broach and Hinks, they've done stuff with us. They're not really active members.
Okay.
They've done a few things with us over the years.
Yeah.
Okay. But am I the only one now left that's actually got a descendant? I can't think of anybody else that has a 14th descendant anymore.
Yeah, okay, well, but there were a bunch of you at a time.
There were times or some.
Harry Evans, one of our listeners, wrote in earlier, and he wants to know, the regimental flag was purchased from surplus material. Where did the surplus come from?
Oh, got a call.
Yeah, this is...
Here, I'm going to you want me to call him?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Put it on speaker so we could hear, but tell him he's on the air, though.
There is a flag expert.
Oh, really?
For the state of Connecticut.
We have the kid that's, young man, that's, he runs the flags. He takes care of the flags in the state capitol.
Oh, wow.
He's a flag guy.
Oh, okay.
That's his name.
So he would know. Here you go, Harry. We're going to get you a good answer.
His name is Matt Valier.
Matt Valier. Just ask him if it's okay if I'm going to mute your microphone while you talk to him.
Okay.
Just tell him you're on a live show.
I got it on speaker if you want.
Yeah, but you talk to him first.
Oh, okay.
And say, is it okay if we put you on the air?
Oh, I already. Hey, Matt, are you okay to go on?
Oh, okay, good. Hey, Matt, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. So we have a question about flags here from one of our listeners, and the question goes a little something like this. The regimental flag was purchased from surplus material. Where did the surplus come from?
I'm not sure exactly where the physical material came from. I'm pretty sure the set of flags that the 14th would have had at Gettysburg were painted by Frederick Rice in Hartford. I'm not exactly sure where he purchased that material from. I know off the top of my head, one of the big silk suppliers in Connecticut was the Cheney brothers out in Manchester, Connecticut.
Okay.
Could have been them. There are also other sources, but in terms of the materials themselves, I'm not exactly sure where those were sourced.
That's still a good answer.
All right.
What else can you tell us about the flags of the 14th Connecticut?
I could tell you a whole bunch.
Yeah, give me a little bunch.
Yeah, well, we have all three of them at the state capitol in Hartford, Connecticut. They only received one national flag throughout the entire war. There isn't a whole lot of it left. But there were two pieces three pieces. There are two remaining that were cut by Color Sergeant John Hurst after the Wilderness. And those are at the New England Civil War Museum in Vernon, Rockville. And the rest of the flag is, like I said, at the state capitol. The two regimental flags, the first one produced by Frederick Rice, that one would have been at Gettysburg. I believe the colors stayed at the wall while the 14th went out to the Bliss Farm.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I think they didn't want them to get captured, so that just in case they left them. But so that one was sent home, I think, a few months after Gettysburg. And then they didn't receive their national one, or not their national one, their second regimental one that was made by Tiffany or contracted by Tiffany. I want to say sometime in 1864, before Morton's Ford. So this has probably got to be like January 1864, maybe late 1863. But they're all surviving in Hartford. The two flag staffs both have bullet damage on it. The national one has a crack at the top, and the color bears, or the color guard as well, bound the top in twine. And then the kind of in the same area on the regimental staff, there's some more bullet damage on there. So they definitely saw some action.
Thank you very much for answering our calls or our questions.
Not a problem.
I appreciate it. And so one more time, it's in the State House and people can go and see these?
Yeah, so if you look up the Connecticut State Capitol, that'll bring you to the State Capitol building in Hartford, Connecticut. Unfortunately, I don't have the 14th Connecticut flags out on display because they never received any sort of conservation after they returned to the state. So they are just, kind of in storage at the moment. Frank was there, and a few other members of the New England Civil War Museum helped me survey and do some light cleaning on them, but unfortunately I can't put them on display quite yet. They need some stabilization before we're able to do that.
Very cool. Very cool. You got a cool job.
I love my job. It is never an issue to go to work during the week.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, good for you, and thank you very much for answering our questions. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thank you for calling.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.
You too.
All right, thanks. Okay, so there you go, Harry. I hope we gave you more than you asked for there. How about burning the Bliss Farm? Did the men have any qualms about doing that, or did they understand the military necessity of doing that?
Well, I think they going forward in history, I was told, and maybe you can confirm this, that the Society of the 14th Connecticut purchased part of that land at one time to help out the Blisses. Yeah. They helped the Blisses out.
Oh, really?
Because they didn't get much money from the government.
I don't think they got anything.
And they made at first they did. I don't know if they
Court,
got
go
some
to Frank.
fine.
Sorry, I'm yelling at Court.
So the Society of the 14th Connecticut, which these veterans, went ahead and helped them out. And then they tried to give this land back to the government. The story goes like this. I remember the man telling me this. I think it was Powell, a guy, professor.
Walt
professor. They tried to give the land back to the government. This is around the 1900s when the park was starting to come out. And the government wouldn't take it back unless they paid the back taxes. Does that sound good?
Oh, my God.
Does that sound familiar?
It sounds like the United States government.
Sounds like the government.
Oh, my God. Where do they come up with this shit?
But then they took it.
Yeah.
They finally took it
back. Yeah, because somebody with a brain said, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this. Yeah. Okay, so that was that we answered Graham's question there. And then I guess Harry had a second question, and I think he's kind of it sounds like it's very similar to where Graham's thinking here. He says, were there any reports of what would be called war crimes today committed by the 14th Connecticut?
Boy, I mean, they stole a stove a couple times from people's houses.
Stole the chickens.
Stole the chickens. I don't really think so.
But is that a war crime?
No.
No, I don't think so.
There's nothing they did. I don't think that would have ever measured up to anything like that. Hurting somebody, hurting some civilian or something.
I don't think I've ever come across anything like that. Regarding the 14th.
All right.
You got to remember,
they're good nutmeggers.
These are nice,
good nutmeggers.
Exactly right. They're good nutmeggers.
Okay. Anything else you want to add before we wind up?
Well,
we wanted to mention Morton's Ford.
Yeah, there's a fight called Morton's Ford that happens in 1864, and maybe we do a smaller episode on that.
Okay.
It's pretty interesting, but it involves the 14th Connecticut, and as I mentioned earlier, there are three fights that they write about a lot: are Antietam, Gettysburg, and Morton's Ford, to give you an idea of where it was in their memory.
And was this like a small operation, but big to them?
It was no. They knew it was small. It was a diversionary tactic against the Confederate Army in February 6, 1864. And we've done a lot down there at that. It's a private land.
Okay.
But we know a gentleman that's got us on down there, got us on the land, We've camped there now. We've done a couple.
Oh, that's cool.
We've done ceremonies at the ford.
Yeah.
We've crossed the ford on the actual day, February 6th, a year and a half ago. We crossed it.
Got your feet wet?
Yeah, in a uniform and everything.
Jeez,
So.
that must have been comfortable.
It was up to here.
I walk through dewy grass and I get my shoes wet. I'm like, ugh, get me out of these.
It'd be a good one to do an episode because it's got some good stories.
Well, we'll have you back and we can do that.
We got pictures of Frank in the middle of the ford.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
I like that you actually get to camp there because they were actually there and everything.
We camp on the 14th Connecticut's picket line.
Yeah.
And we've also camped on the hill where their winter encampment was, right at their fire. We found their fire pit.
Okay.
That they took a picture of on what he's talking about, the excursion. They went back and took a picture of that fire pit in 1890.
So
very cool.
Stay tuned, sports.
Yeah,
fans,
we'll do
Yeah.
one of those again. Yeah, we'll have you back. Anyway, Frank, thank you very much
you're
for
welcome,
coming.
welcome.
Chris, thank you. And Court, are you awake?
He's probably sleeping.
Happy belated birthday, Matt.
Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for watching. Bye bye.
Ask A Gettysburg Guide is
I missed
hosted
it
by
again.
Matt Callery, with Mikey B. Bariski, and Courtney Micker. Produced by Matt Callery and Courtney Micker. Guides appear gratis, but they would love for you to hire them for a tour on your next visit to the battlefield. To be put in touch with one, send an email to matt@addressinggettysburg.com. Thanks for watching.
Our hearts so stout have got us fame, for soon 'tis known from whence we came. Wherever we go, they dread the name of Gary Owen in glory. Instead